The ravens flew low across the dusk-lit sky, their wings whispering over the frost-rimmed towers of Winterfell. Snow sifted in lazy spirals, settling on slate roofs and ancient ramparts, but the chill could not smother the hush of anticipation that had fallen across the castle. Somewhere deep in the godswood, a wolf howled, a raw, lonely sound that lingered in the bare branches like a warning. Jon Snow stood beneath those branches, young, silent, watchful, his breath curling in silver plumes, while his gloved hand rested on the rough bark of the heart tree. Crimson sap, half frozen, gleamed beneath the carved face's weeping eyes. He felt it pulse beneath his palm, as though the old gods sensed the thing that had arrived with the raven's black wings. Lord Eddard Stark had not yet spoken the words aloud. He had broken the seal himself, in the privacy of his solar, and stared at the parchment until the fire burned low and the rushlights guttered. The royal sigil, three-headed dragon inked in brightest red, was as familiar to him as the chill that crept through these northern stones. The hand that wrote the letter was Prince Rhaegar's, unmistakable in its elegant strokes, but the date chilled him most of all. The very eve of the prince's flight from King's Landing, weeks before the Trident, months before the rebellion's first sword rang out. Ned closed his eyes and saw again the Tower of Joy, ashen dawn, violet banners, dying men and vows whispered in blood. Lyanna. Her fevered plea. Promise me, Ned. Those words had lived inside his heart, like a buried shard of dragon glass, cutting afresh each time he recalled them. Now he knew why she had begged. Rhaegar Targaryen had written a will. He had named his unborn son his heir, and he had ordered that son, should he live, to be sent north, where winter wolves kept their own counsel far from Robert Baratheon's wrath. In the dim light, Lord Stark reread the closing line, a line quivering with prophecy and peril both. The song of ice and fire must be born in snow and shadow. Protect him, for the dawn belongs to him. It was signed with the prince's flowing hand and sealed in red wax shaped like a dragon's egg. Ned pressed thumb and forefinger to his eyes until sparks danced. How could he reveal this truth? Robert's banners were already rising, crackling with hatred for every dragon ever hatched. If word slipped that a trueborn Targaryen lived under his roof, the usurper's hammer would fall upon Winterfell with all the fury of the summer storms that lashed Storm's End. Yet hiding the truth grew harder by the day. Jon was nearly 14, tall for his age, gray-eyed and solemn, his silence sharpened by questions he dared not ask. Catelyn's bitterness, ever keen as a draught of ice water, could no longer be soothed with half-answers. Every scowl she cast at the boy reminded Ned of the oath he had sworn to his dying sister. But Lyanna's plea had never spoken of forever. Rhaegar's letter changed everything. A father's will held the weight of a crown, even one shattered on the Trident. Outside, iron bells tolled for the evening meal. Ned folded the parchment once more, slid it inside his leather jerkin, and pushed to his feet. He must speak to Jon alone before the hall fires and the gossiping eyes. But as he turned, a new sound rose beyond the battlements. The deep, thrumming beat of wings too vast for any raven or eagle. The walls themselves seemed to tremble with it. A stable boy darted past Ned's doorway, his face white as snowmelt. A monster in the sky, my lord, a burnin' shadow. Ned's heart lurched. Dragons. The word was a ghost in these northern halls, a half-remembered terror from tales old Nan spun on winter nights. Yet the prince's letter had spoken of more than a hidden heir. I have entrusted them to those who will not bend the knee to madness, only to destiny. The meaning had been obscure until this very moment. Ned strode to the yard just as dusk surrendered to night. Torches flared along the parapets, casting wild banners of light upon the snow. Men shouted and pointed, crossbows were cranked, but every bolt wavered as its owner beheld the creature coiling above the first keep. A dragon, black as midnight oil, scales edged in ember red, its vast wingspan blotting out the newborn stars. Flames licked at its jaws, illuminating eyes like molten gold. Upon its back rode a lone figure in sable cloak and silvered armor. When the dragon descended, snow devils whirled from the yard like frightened spirits. The beast landed with a roar that rattled every shield upon the racks. Steam curled from its nostrils, and its talons gouged furrows in the packed earth. The rider swung down with a fluid grace, helm under arm. Silver gold hair spilled to his shoulders. His face, fine-boned, high-cheeked, unmistakably Targaryen, bore the calm authority of one born to command. Yet he was too young to be Rhaegar. Perhaps 19 summers, lean as a longsword, his violet eyes reflecting torchlight like twin amethysts. "I am Ser Belor Brightflame," he called, voice carrying above the dragon's rumbling growl. "By oath and blood I serve the true king, Prince Jon Targaryen, son of Rhaegar, who lies under this roof." Silence crashed down. Even the dire wolves caged beyond the kennels ceased their howling. Baelor's gaze swept the assembled folk, soldiers, servants, maids clutching aprons, and came to rest upon Ned Stark. He bowed, fist to heart. "Lord of Winterfell, I come bearing your prince's birthright, and warning of the storm that rides at his heels." On the rampart above, Catelyn Stark clasped her shawl tighter, her green eyes fixed upon the dragon, as though it were a nightmare made flesh. Maester Luwin clutched the crenellation, white as parchment, and Jon Snow, forgotten in the shadows of the Godswood, felt the world tilt upon its axis. In that instant, the low-born bastard he had always believed himself to be fated like frost before sunrise, leaving a terrible, thrilling emptiness into which destiny rushed like a gale. The song of ice and fire must be born in snow and shadow. The dragon smelled of smoke and sky. Its breath rolled across Jon's face, warm despite the night chill. Somewhere deep within that furnace gaze he sensed recognition, not of who he was, but of what. A heartbeat echoed between them. Slow and thunderous, Jon lifted a hand. The dragon lowered its great horned head. His fingers brushed hot scales, and the world held its breath. Robb Stark found him there minutes later, breathless from a sprint across the yard. "Jon Dodds, is that?" His blue eyes shone with awe and terror both. Snow dusted his auburn hair. Jon lowered his hand, pulse racing. "A dragon, Robb. You touched it." Robb's grin wavered. "Mother will faint." Jon managed to laugh, though his throat was tight. "I nearly did." Inside the hall, the clamor swelled. Arguments over crossbows, prayers, curses. Yet Jon felt a stillness spreading inside him like sunrise over a frozen lake. The dragon's warmth lingered in his palm, and with it, an inexplicable sense of belonging. He had always been the lone shadow at Winterfell's hearth. Half-brother, Oathbreaker's son Dotchgi. Now a storm of truce threatened to upheave every stone of his life. But amid that chaos stood one unyielding pillar. He was no longer alone. A dragon had bowed its head to him. Robb clasped Jon's shoulder. "Father will need us. Come, Dundee." As they crossed the yard, Jon cast one last glance back. Baelor Brightflame spoke quietly with Lord Stark, his silver hair shining like moonsteel. The dragon settled its wings, sparks floating up each time its scaled belly scraped the snow. And atop the highest tower, Catelyn's silhouette lingered against the pale glow of the moon, rigid as iron in winter. Whatever words she would hurl at Ned tonight, Jon doubted love would temper them. The great hall felt suddenly small, crammed with soldiers, retainers, and more fear than air. Lord Stark dismissed all but his closest counselors. Maester Luwin, Sir Roderick Castle, and old Jory Castle fresh from the gate. Lady Catelyn entered last, red-haired and cold-eyed, her presence a blade. Baelor Brightflame stood at the center, dragon leathers steaming from the snow that melted upon them. Jon took his place discreetly near the hearth, flanked by Robb and little Arya, who stared unabashed at Baelor's scarred pauldrons. A dragon in Winterfell. Sir Roderick muttered through his whiskers. 7 hells. Baelor inclined his head. "Only one of 3, Sir Eyre. The others wait upon the King's Road, hidden beyond eyes and arrow range. They will obey no rider, but the one for whom they were promised." "Bender went I. Indignal." "Promised?" Ned asked, voice low. Rhaegar Targaryen bound them to his will with blood magic and prophecy. Baelor's violet gaze flicked toward Jon, Their hearts stir only for his heir. Gasps, whispers. Catelyn's hand flew to her mouth. Arya's eyes widened. Ned stepped forward, iron in his shoulders. "Speak plainly, sir. My household knows little of such sorcery." Baelor unsheathed a dagger and drew its edge across his palm. Blood welled black in firelight. He pressed the wound to a silver phial hanging at his throat, whispering in High Valyrian. The phial glowed, flames trapped in crystal. Prince Jon was forged of ice and fire. One day his song must rise to challenge the darkness. My oath is to see him live to sing it. Catelyn found her voice at last, trembling with anger. "He is a bastard. Ned's shame, not some prince." Baelor's stare was unyielding. "He is no bastard, my lady. I bear Rhaegar's sealed will, naming him Aegon Targaryen. Trueborn, first of his name, Prince of Dragonstone, heir to the Iron Throne. Benderwanons. Abba." A log cracked in the hearth, sparks leaping like startled fireflies. Robb turned to Jon, eyes wide. Arya tugged at his sleeve. "Is it true?" Jon felt words lodge in his throat. Ned stepped between them, face drawn with years of secrets. Slowly, he produced the letter. "I had hoped to spare you this, Kate." His voice broke. But the truth cares little for hopes. Catelyn read only a line before her knees weakened. Sir Roderick's arm steadied her. Baelor tucked his bloody dagger away. "Our time is short. Lord Robert rides north with 10,000 men, all sworn to extirpate Targaryen seed, root and branch. Somehow he learned dragons yet draw breath." Maester Luwin's quill froze above parchment. "The rebellion has not even begun." "It will within the moon's turn," Baelor replied. "Rhaegar marches from the south to meet Robert at the Trident, leaving King's Landing to Tywin Lannister's mercy. My prince feared the capital would fall to fire and steel. He made fallback plans. Those plans now rest in a boy of 14. Dan Sower." Ned's jaw tightened. "He is my son. He is the realm's." Baelor faced Jon. "And the realm bleeds." That night Jon roamed the battlements, moonlight pooling on stone like milk. The cold could not reach him. Too many thoughts burned in his mind. Below, the dragon. Baelor called her Obscurian. Slept curled beside the hot water spring that warmed the glass gardens. Steam feathered her wings. From this height, she resembled a black hill, save for the occasional ember throbbed deep within her throat. A footstep behind. Ned joined him, wordless for a time, both watching the creature dream. "I wanted to tell you," Ned said at last. "Every day for 14 years. But promises are heavier than chains." Jon swallowed. "Is that why Catelyn hates me?" Ned's sigh was a cloud. "She feared for our children." A mother's fear twists love into blades. He handed Jon the letter. "Read." Jon traced the wax dragon as though touching history. He read the prince's words, their graceful certainty, the prophecy singing between the lines. He read of ice, of fire, of dawn, of a crown steeped in sorrow. When he finished, his hands shook. "I don't want it," he whispered. "I never asked for a crown." "Nor did I ask for dragons in my yard," Ned said, faint ruefulness softening his tone. "The gods care little for what we wish. They hurl storms and pray we learn to stand." Jon stared at the snow-drenched world beyond the walls, where cold and night reign together. "If Robert comes, he will kill everyone I love. Then we must not let him." Ned placed a firm hand on Jon's shoulder. "Listen well. We will send word to Manderley Dustin Reed. The North will stand between Robert and you until we find a safer path. Baelor claims there are 2 more dragons. Hidden, young, riderless. If it comes to war, they may be our only shield." "And now all." "War," Jon echoed. The word tasted of ash. "Yet war is a last resort. There may be another way." Ned's gaze drifted south, toward lands he had not seen since his youth. Rhaegar wrote of allies in Dorne still loyal to his memory. "If we can reach them, you would smuggle me south? To a place Robert's scouts dare not seek, the shadow city of Asshai. Rhaegar believed the priests there know the secrets of dragon bonding." If you must one day wield such power, you will need their guidance. Ned's grip tightened. But you should choose, Jon. Stay and fight, or fly and learn. The burden is yours. Jon's thoughts reeled. Winterfell's hearths, Robb's laughter, Arya's wolfish grin, Bran's climbing mischief, Rickon's toddling delight. Faces bright and beloved. To leave them felt like tearing out his own heart. Yet to stay might doom them all to Robert's swords. The wolf howled again, distant yet near, a mournful note sliding along the wind. When must I decide? Before the next sunrise, Ned said. Baelor's brothers keep the other dragons a day's ride south. If you go, you must leave while the sky still hides your flight. Jon closed his eyes. In the silence he heard wings unfolding, saw fire licking the horizon, smelled ash on the wind. Yet beneath that roar beat another rhythm, steady, cold, ancient as the stones beneath his boots. His mother's people. His home. I will go, he said, voice steady at last. For the north and the realm. I will learn what I must, and one day I will return. Ned's eyes shone in the moonlight. Father and son embraced, the warmth fierce against the cold. When they parted, Ned pressed into Jon's hand the hilt of a dagger. Valyrian steel, rippled like dark water. Your mother's last gift, he murmured. The blade of dawn rose, forged long before Valyria's doom. It has been hidden these years. Take it, and remember her courage. Jon unsheathed the dagger. Stars flickered along its edge. He slid it home, heart heavy but resolute. I will not fail her. Dawn found Winterfell cloaked in shifting mists. Baelor led Jon to Obscurion's side, while Robb, Arya, and even Sansa stood in hushed farewell. Bran slept still, unaware of the parting. Rickon gurgled in old Nan's arms. Catelyn watched from the covered bridge, expression carved of ice. Baelor mounted first, then helped Jon into place behind the saddle's high cantle. Breathe with her, he instructed. Feel the fire in your blood, but master it. She will not obey uncertainty. Jon nodded, hands gripping the leather harness. The dragon's hide radiated heat through his furs. A thrill prickled his spine. Part terror, part ecstasy. Ned raised a hand. I will send ravens south. Look for them at White Harbor, then at Greywater Watch. Choose your steps carefully. His voice cracked. The North remembers, Jon. Jon's throat was too tight for words. He bowed his head. Obscurion's wings unfurled, vast midnight sails that caught the dawn's pale light. Snow fluttered upward as she leapt, hind legs driving into earth, talons scattering stone. A single mighty beat thrust them skyward, and Winterfell diminished beneath swirling mists. Towers shrank to toy blocks, ramparts to chalk scrawls. The world fell away until only sky remained. Jon pressed his cheek to Baelor's back, wind-slicing tears from his eyes. Below, the godswood spread like a dark stain, the heart tree's white branches clawing at emptiness. He felt its gaze upon him until clouds swallowed the world. They climbed higher, into air so thin it tasted of lightning. Sunlight spilled across endless fields of cloud, turning their peaks to molten gold. And there, at the edge of eternity, Jon Snow, Aegon Targaryen, felt the song of ice and fire begin to hum within his bones. A music older than crowns, cold as star-forged steel, fierce as dragonflame. Miles south, the inn at the crossroads bustled with midday travelers, merchants, soldiers, small folk fleeing rumor of war. In a dim corner pocketed from prying eyes, Barristan Selmy sat across from Ashara Dane, cloak hooded, hands steady despite the tremor of destiny he sensed upon the wind. The parchment before them bore Prince Rhaegar's final strategy, an elegant sketch of Westeros with 3 dragon sigils marked north, south, and east. Beside the easternmost sigil lay a single word, Asshai. Barristan's blue eyes met Ashara's dusk violet gaze. Baelor's raven reached me 3 days ago. If he has succeeded, the prince's son flies even now beyond Robert's reach. Ashara traced the sigil with a slim dark finger. And if he fails, then we shall need to draw our swords sooner than hoped. His voice was a quiet vow. Outside, thunder rumbled on a cloudless sky. Horses reared, men cursed, tankards rattled on wooden tables. Some swore they saw a streak of black fire race across the heavens, headed east. Barristan smiled. A small, fierce curve of the lips. The game is begun. Obscurion alighted in a clearing of ancient pines by nightfall, her wings folding with a sigh that stirred every needle. The dragon-glass bryophytes that clung to her scales glimmered like embers in the gloom. Baelor dismounted, then helped Jon slide to the moss-soft ground. Nearby, a stream chuckled over frosted stones. The air smelled of pine sap and hidden fire. "We sleep here," Baelor said. "Tomorrow, we ride hard to Moat Cailin where my brothers await." Jon's legs trembled, not from fear, but from the aftershock of flight. "She is beautiful," he murmured, stroking a scale larger than his hand. "Dragons are beauty made hunger," Baelor replied, unsaddling the beast. "Remember that. She will love you, but if ever your command falters, hunger triumphs." Jon nodded. Dawn Rose rode his hip like a cold promise. He collected fallen branches, lit a small fire, and sat opposite Baelor beneath the dragon's shadow. Stars spun overhead, bright and distant. Somewhere an owl called. Baelor produced dried venison. "Tell me of Winterfell," he said between bites. Jon spoke of Robb's swordplay, Arya's mischief, Bran's climbing, the smell of fresh baked bread from the kitchens, and the deep, comforting silence of the godswood. With each word, he felt the ache of distance grow. Yet beneath it stirred something else. A purpose widening within like the slow unfurl of dragon wings. Baelor listened, eyes thoughtful. "Hold tight to those memories. They will anchor you when vision threatens to drown the man." "Vision?" Jon asked. "The sight dragons give their riders, glimpses of shadowed futures, dreams aflame with possibility. It is both gift and tempest." Baelor tossed the last bone into the fire. It hissed and cracked. "You are ice and fire, Aegon. Ice will keep you steady when fire seeks to consume. Never trust one without the other." Jon gazed into the flames until pictures formed. A weirwood's red tears, Robert's warhammer crushing steel, Ned Stark kneeling in snow, sword red with blood not his own. Dragons wheeled overhead. Fire raining upon rivers turned to steam. At the world's end, a wall of night rose, crowned with blue stars burning cold. He blinked. The images vanished. Baelor watched him, understanding in his violet eyes. "Sleep," the knight said gently. "Dream, but do not drown. Tomorrow the road grows perilous." Jon lay beside the dragon's flank, warmth seeping into his bones. He closed his eyes, and the forest's night song washed over him. Whisper of wind, murmur of water, the slow thunder of Obscurion's mighty heart. Somewhere far away, in a castle wrapped in winter, a direwolf howled at a sky now missing one of its silent sons. And in the realm's heart, where thrones were forged of blades and blood, storm clouds gathered, hungry for fire. Robert Baratheon leaned across the war council table at Storm's End, fist crashing upon the curl-edged map. "Dragons," he growled, black beard bristling. "They say wings of shadow were seen over the neck." Jon Arryn exchanged a wary glance with Stannis. "Small folk tales grow in the telling, your grace." Robert's blue eyes blazed. "I know a lie when I taste fear on it. Someone hides a Targaryen whelp in the north. And now dragons flock to him." He jabbed a dagger at Winterfell's mark. "Send riders. Burn every holdfast if need be. I will not have that cursed line rise again." Night Song's raven had brought word only hours ago. Rhaegar mustered loyalists. Dorne stirred like a nest of scorpions, and Tywin's lions sharpened claws in Lannisport. War loomed, but dragons shifted its shape. A rebellion that might have ended in a single climactic battle threatened to ignite the realm. Stannis cleared his throat. "If dragons truly fly, the usual engines of war will fail us. We will need scorpions, bolt throwers. We will need dragon heads on spikes," Robert barked. "I want Targaryen blood on my hammer before summer's end." Jon Arryn chose his next words with care. "Your grace, if rumors speak true, The prince is but a boy. Strike down the dragons, yes, but the child. D's. Robert finished. No half measures. Lightning forked outside the high narrow windows, illuminating the ancient walls. Thunder followed, rattling candelabras. Robert sheathed his dagger. Dawn's light finds me on the road. I march north within the week. Let the realm see how a would-be dragon king fares against the fury of storms. Then, atop the wall, Lord Commander Rhaegar watched the horizon burn pink as dawn. Ravens clustered restlessly above the rookery, wings beating the air with uneasy haste. He could not name the dread that gnawed his thoughts, only that it tasted of old, forgotten nightmares. When a shadow passed over the rising sun, a shape colossal winged. He swore softly, breath frosting his beard. The beast soared eastward, beyond the shivering sea. But its cry carried on the wind like the shatter of chains too long broken. The commander's steward approached, letter in hand. From Winterfell, my lord. Lord Stark warns of unrest. Rhaegar took the parchment, eyes never leaving the shrinking silhouette of flame and night. Somewhere beyond ice-crowned peaks, the world was changing. And so, he feared, would the wall's long vigil. 3 days into their journey, Jon and Baelor reached the rocky causeway leading to Moat Cailin. Haunted towers loomed above mist-choked bogs. Blackwater lapped at mossy stones. 2 dragons waited on the broken ramparts, one bronze, the other pale blue streaked with silver. Their wings stirred the fog like restless spirits. Baelor's brothers greeted them. Sir Daeron, tall and lean, hair bound in a warrior's tail, and Lady Rhaenys, not Rhaegar's lost daughter, but a namesake cousin with eyes like polished garnet and scars across one cheek. Each bowed before Jon with solemn reverence. Prince Aegon, Daeron murmured. Jon flushed. Jon will suffice until crowns are kinder things. Rhaenys smiled crookedly. Humility in a dragon lord. The world truly turns. They wasted no breath on ceremony. Supplies were divided. Scouts dispatched. Baelor unfurled a rough map inked upon tanned hide. He traced a line from the neck to White Harbor, then across the Bight by hired cog to Sisterton, and from there to Braavos on a ship pledged to House Dane. Each step skirted Robert's shadow yet risked betrayal at every port. Rhaenys tapped a second route, eastward through Skagos, beyond the Broken Branch. The wildlings claimed secret paths across the frozen sea to the island of Ib. Fewer eyes there, though giant kin may balk at dragons overhead. Daeron countered, smugglers in White Harbor owe Baelor coin and silence. Speed serves us now. Robert marches north faster than ravens fly. Down. Ento. Jon listened, equal parts dread and determination, nodding his gut. Whichever path, I must master the bond before war swallows us. The beast obeys instinct more than reins. We may not have years. Baelor clasped his shoulder. Then we shall seize weeks and forge them into swords. Night fell thick and wet, fog spilling through shattered gates. Jon stood atop a crumbling parapet. Obscurion crouched behind him, wings cloaked around her rider like a living keep. The other dragons slept below, their bellies glowing faintly. Baelor guided Jon in ancient words, Valyrian phrases that tasted of smoke and starlight. Jon repeated them until his tongue ached. Each syllable coaxed heat along his veins, a slow-building furnace. Feel her heart, Baelor intoned. Match its rhythm. Fire answers fire. Jon closed his eyes. The dragon's pulse thundered beneath him. Massive, inexorable. He breathed with it, deeper, slower, until his own heartbeat echoed the same primal drum. Heat bloomed in his chest, then behind his eyes. Visions unfurled, snow swallowing fields, bones glimmering blue beneath moonlit frost, a wall of living shadow marching south. Flames rose to meet that darkness, red and gold. At their heart, he saw himself astride 3 dragons at once, swords of light clashing above a field of ashes. He saw Ned Stark kneeling before him, blood streaking his brow, whispering weary loyalty. He saw Robert Baratheon impaled upon a spike of black ice, eyes wide with disbelief. And beyond, in ruins of a city of bells, a woman of silver hair stood weeping as the sky cracked open to reveal swirling galaxies. Jon gasped, staggering. The vision shattered. Baelor steadied him. Easy. Fire burns fierce. Jon wiped sweat from his brow despite the cold night. I saw the end of worlds. Possible worlds, Baelor corrected. Every choice shapes the tapestry. Jon looked south, where the mists hid the King's Road. Somewhere there rode a man who would kill him without pause. Somewhere beyond rode Rhaegar, bearing hopes doomed to shatter. And somewhere, perhaps, the darkness he had glimpsed advanced regardless of mortal wars. He breathed out. Frost drifted from his lips. I will not let the realm burn. Baelor's smile was sad. The realm will burn, my prince. The question is, what shall rise from the ashes? Days stretched into weeks of covert travel, racing dawn along frozen shorelines. Sleeping in abandoned watchtowers, bribing ferrymen with obsidian daggers. Rumors trailed them like hungry dogs. Dragons over the neck, wolves marching south, Robert's army devouring provisions and loyalty alike. Yet for every tale of Baratheon wrath, they heard others, whispers of rebellion against the rebellion, of lords uneasy with slaughtering children, of small folk awed by glimpses of winged shadows at dusk. Songs already birthed myth. The White Wolf and the Night Dragon, they called him. At Sisterton, they found the Braavos cog burned to the waterline. Rats floating belly up amid charred timbers. A sealed missive awaited in its stead. Sigil of house manderly broken, words scrawled in haste. Spies in White Harbor. Harbor master slain. Trust no sail. Wyman. Beneath, a second line in unknown hand. Old ghosts seek Aegon's blood. Choose darkness over salt. Baelor cursed softly. The sea route is closed. Rhaenys gestured at the horizon where pale streaks marred the twilight sky. Those are no clouds. Jon squinted. Smoke. Villages burned beyond the hills. Darren collected their slender store of dragonglass arrows. We flee by night, through the woods. Obscurion will carry Jon above the treetops. We keep no campfires. Robert is closer than ravens whisper. Men of Saul. They rode until the moon bled out and stillness settled like a blanket over the black pines. No birds sang, no wolves cried. The hush prickled Jon's skin worse than cold ever had. On the fifth night, thunder of hooves shattered the silence. Baratheon scouts crashed through underbrush, torches wheeling like fireflies. Baelor urged Jon aloft, but Obscurion snarled, sensing danger too near. Flames danced in her throat. Then came the twang of crossbows, bolts whistling into darkness. One grazed the dragon's wing, another struck Baelor's pauldron, piercing leather and flesh. He grunted but held the reins. Fly! He shouted. Jon's heart pounded. Not without you. Protect the line. Rhaenys and Daeron unleashed arrows of dragonglass, each bolt trailing ghostly light. Scouts fell screaming, torches tumbling. Baelor slumped in the saddle, blood darkening his cloak. Jon scrambled up behind him, pulling him close. Obscurion leapt, wings beating fury, claws shearing spruce tops. They burst above the canopy, moonlight drenching them in silver. Below, the forest erupted. Bronze dragon Mavis and blue Sapphira spewed flame, trees igniting in ribbons of white-hot light. Shadows fled, torches winked out. Yet Jon's gaze clung to the ground until he saw Rhaenys leap onto Sapphira's neck. Daeron vault, atop Mavis. They rose after him, but not before Baratheon horns bayed in challenge. The hunt had tasted blood. Above the clouds, Baelor sagged against Jon. Breath shallow, words weak. Prince, listen. Jon bound cloth to the wound, tears freezing on his lashes. Save your strength. My oath, Baelor rasped, now passes to you. Protect the dragons. Protect the realm. His hand closed around Jon's wrist, hot with blood. Ashen snow. Remember. Obscurion keened, a mournful note that split the night. Baelor Bright Flame's eyes dulled, fixed forever on unseen horizons. Moonlight flickered across his slack face, and he was gone. Jon held him, trembling, until Rhaenys and Daeron flanked them in grim formation. Below, the forest burned. Above, the stars watched, indifferent. The next dawn found them upon a lonely ridge overlooking the frigid Fingers. Gray sea snarled below, cliffs jagged as Targaryen steel. They built a pyre of driftwood. Obscurion lit it with a single breath. Flames roared sky-high, scattering ash upon the wind. Rhaenys knelt, whispering Valyrian prayers. Daeron pressed sword to breast in silent salute. Jon stood apart, dawn rose clutched in white knuckles. Smoke stung his eyes, but grief already blurred the world. "He was the finest of us," Daeron murmured. "He was my guide," Jon said. "Now I am blind, though I—" "Not blind," Rhaenys corrected. "Unfettered. He taught you to walk, now you must run." "Endero." Jon watched the flames consume Baelor's mortal shell, sparks spiraling into a sky red with dawn. "I do not know the way." "We will find it together," Rhaenys said. Daeron's gaze pierced him. "First, we avenge him. Robert marches for Winterfell. If we reach the Eyrie, Lady Arryn may yet grant us passage to the Vale's hidden ports. From there, Essos." Jon's heart clenched at the name Winterfell. He saw Ned Stark upon those snowy walls, facing a storm he could not halt. "If Robert comes, my father will die." Rhaenys laid a hand on his arm. "Our dragons could turn Robert's host to cinder before it reaches the neck." Daeron gave her a sharp look. "One dragon's fire is wildfire. 3 is apocalypse. Thousands of innocents march under Robert's banners. Small folk conscripts, hedge knights seeking coin. Shall we roast them all?" Jon's next breath rattled. Fire answered fire. He remembered Baelor's warning. Hunger triumphs. Yet he also recalled the vision of blue-eyed shadows at the world's end, devouring without discrimination. Choices would shape the tapestry. "I will not become a butcher," Jon said at last. "But I will not let Winterfell fall. We fly to the Eyrie, yes, but first we warn the North. If Ned Stark raises his banners in time, Robert may think twice." Rhaenys nodded. "Then we ride swift." Daeron turned to the dragons, stroking Mavis's neck. "The gods help us." In King's Landing, Tywin Lannister received his spy's report with feline calm. Dragons north, Baratheon rage. Targaryen prince, alive Datot. His green eyes flicked over the parchment, as though it were a page from some tiresome ledger. At last he spoke to his son Jaime, whose fingers drummed the gilded armrest. "Alleys shift like sand in storm," Tywin said. "We must stand where the sand will settle." Jaime cocked a golden brow. "And where is that, father?" "With the side that holds dragons." Tywin's thin smile gleamed. "Send ravens to Winterfell. Offer the lion's shield. If Prince Aegon marries my daughter Cersei, Lannister gold will fund the North's defense, and dragons cause alike." Jaime laughed. "Robert will spit blood." "Robert spits blood every morn after too much wine," Tywin replied. "By the time he learns of our betrothal, his throat will be raw." In a velvet-draped chamber in Casterly Rock, Cersei Lannister gazed into a polished mirror. Golden hair spilling like molten metal, emerald eyes bright with ambition. A dragon prince. A crown by marriage. Power at last, slipping through her fingers like fine sand toward a destiny she had hungered for since girlhood. But beyond those gilded halls, storm and flame collided, forging paths unseen even by the lion in his den. From the skies above the Eyrie, the world unfurled like a painted map. Moon Tower and Skycell basked in sunlit frost. Obscurion circled once before landing outside the Moongate. Jon dismounted, cloak snapping in high-altitude winds. The gate opened to reveal Lysa Arryn, pale and gaunt. Babe at her breast, her nerves strung taut as bowstring. At her side stood Petyr Baelish, eyes sharp, smile thin. "Winterfell writes of unnatural beasts," the Littlefinger said. "I should have assumed dragons." Jon bowed. "I come seeking safe passage and alliance." Lysa clutched her child. "Robert Baratheon, is my husband's foster brother. He would name me traitor. Name to see. Robert will name you corpse if dragons align against him. Petter countered smoothly. We sit at destiny's crossroads, sweet Lysa. Daron stepped forward, letter in hand, Rhaegar's own seal, unbroken since the fall of Dragonstone. The prince foresaw treachery in King's Landing. He trusted Lord Aaron's honor. Petter's smile widened. Honor, my prince, is the currency of fools. Yet opportunity is the gold of kings. Jon met his gaze, cold as the Vale's winds. Help me keep war from these mountains, Lord Baelish, and I will remember. Ravens soared. Lords chose sides. At River Run, Hoster Tully weighed letters from both Baratheon camp and Stark. Duty warred with caution until Catelyn's desperate plea arrived. The Dragonborn is my husband's son. Protect him as you would protect me. Hoster's reply sealed his choice. In Old Town, the conclave argued omens. Red comets, cracking ice, horns heard at the world's edge. Archmaester Marwyn spoke of dragons reborn, but most dismissed him until glass candles burned of their own accord. Then whispers spread. The Valyrian doom stirs anew. Beyond the wall, Mance Rayder heard tales carried on midnight winds. Iron men killing dragons, kings south warring. He tasted change and began weaving songs of his own rebellion. And in a frozen oubliette beneath Dragonstone, Melisandre of Asshai dreamt of a boy with wolf's eyes riding a dragon made of night, his blade a beam of morning star light. Her lips shaped a single word, Azor Ahai. The flames danced in answer, revealing ice-crowned shadows that howled at a bleeding sky. Joan's company sailed from Gulltown on a swift sloop manned by smuggler Davos Seaworth. Once an onion knight, now a man seeking purpose. They hugged the coast, dragons flying high and distant to avoid panic. Each night Davos joined Jon on deck, sharing tales of storms, stars, and the fickle fortunes of men. Jon listened, carving the advice into memory. One dusk, as orange glow rippled across quiet seas, Davos leaned on the rail. You bear heavy weight for shoulders so young. Jon traced a groove in the salt-worn wood. Weight does not change because we name it heavy. True. But a man may seek other shoulders, or build stronger ones. Davos nodded to the dragons circling like distant kites. Those wings will lift more than flesh if you let them. Jon followed his gaze. Obscurion banked in smooth arcs, moonlight skating her obsidian scales. She was freedom and fire, but also responsibility more towering than any wall. Do you believe in destiny, Davos? I believe in choices. Destiny is the map men draw after they've walked the road. Jon smiled faintly. The wind tasted of brine and coming storms. Somewhere ahead, Essos awaited with secrets older than dragons. Somewhere behind, Robert Baratheon crossed the neck, warhammers raised. And between them, the narrow sea shimmered like a blade poised to cleave the world in two. Jon Snow, Aegon Targaryen, closed his eyes and breathed deep. The song stirred within, ice's steady drum, fire's wild cry, melding into a harmony neither entirely one nor the other. It would guide him forward, through shadow and flame, until the dawn the prince had promised was forged in living light. And so the tale, woven of wolf and dragon, honor and prophecy, blood and hope, marched onward toward the edge of 5 long hours, each heartbeat another stroke on the loom of fate, each choice a thread laid down for generations yet unborn. Beyond horizon's curve, where black waters met starlit vault, a shape glided beneath the sea, huge, ancient, stirred by distant songs of fire. It raised a barnacled head, eyes luminescent gold, and followed the shadow of 3 dragons crossing the moon's reflection. In its chest burned memory older than Valyria, older than mankind, of a promise made to secret gods. It turned toward the east, where dawn waited and swam. Kai. The sloop cut a narrow path through the slate-gray waters of the narrow sea. Its single square sail, taut with a brisk wind that tasted of distant snows and spiced lands alike. Dawn crept over the horizon, painting molten copper across gentle swells. In its reflection 3 dragons wheeled at such heights that even sailors who glanced up mistook them for wandering clouds. Jon stood near the prow beside Davos, damp wind combing stray curls across his brow. Every league carried them farther from the home that shaped him, and closer to the mystery that would reforge him. Below decks, Rhaenys cleaned Baelor's sword in ritual silence, while Daeron studied star maps by flickering lantern light, searching for currents that might shave hours from the journey. Nobody spoke of Baelor's empty bunk, but each night the soft groan of timbers seemed to echo with the cadence of his missing counsel. 2 days out from the Fingers, they met a broad-beamed Myrish trader dead in the water, her hull pocked by scorpion bolts. Davos hailed the wreck and brought the sloop alongside. The stench of spilled fish oil mingled with sweeter, far older copper. Jon climbed aboard with Daeron and found the deck slick with drying blood. Crewmen felled where they'd stood. No coin had been taken, only bound chests pried open. Inside lay bundles of green pine arrows, each tipped with wicked iron barbs and coils of chain. Daeron's face hardened. Scorpion ammunition, dragon slayer's teeth. Robert outfits his hunters on every tide, he muttered, shutting the lid. Below, they discovered a single survivor, an aging helmsman pinned beneath a fallen spar. With steady hands, Jon and Davos freed him, offered watered wine, and learned the tale. Lannister outriders, under a crimson banner, had overtaken the trader, confiscated cargo bound for Gulltown, and left no witnesses, or so they believed. Davos asked after the Crimson Lion's commander, but the old man could give only a name overheard through screams. Sir Amory Lorch. They left him coin for passage to Pentos, and set sails heavy with unease. That evening, as gulls faded into pink haze, Jon retreated to the small quarterdeck where Obscurion glided just above mast height, her wing beats steady as a heartbeat. He closed his eyes and reached for the tether he felt whenever she drew near. A hot, pulsing presence at the edge of thought, and for a moment the world fell away. Salt wind shifted to searing cold at cloud crest. The sea became a rippling sheet far below, and he could taste the iron tang of air split by his own passage. The joy of flight rushed through him. Ascending currents buoyed vast pinions, the sun a coin he might claim with one more upward sweep. Then came the whisper, softer than snowfall. A swirl of images. Shattered shields, flames licking ice-rimmed towers, Ned Stark gripping ice as red snow fell at his feet. Jon gasped. The vision receded. He leaned on the rail until trembling eased. Fire shows futures, Baelor had warned, but ice decides which survive. Rhaenys found him there, moonlight limning the scar across her cheek. She offered a small leather pouch. Seeds of ghostgrass, she explained when he raised a brow. It grows only in shadowed wastes, yet each stalk glows when night is darkest. A reminder that even in pitch, light is born. Jon tucked the pouch into his cloak and asked how she bore her own visions. Rhaenys responded with a dry laugh and pointed to the thin white line on her face. I fought the first one, she said. Tried to carve it away, as if a blade could cut prophecy. The scar reminds me surrender is sometimes wiser. Namen? That night the wind slackened, and the sea became mirror still beneath a vault of stars sharp as shards of onyx. The watch rotated silently, but Jon remained on deck, unable to surrender to sleep. Near midnight he spotted a curious glow rippling beneath the keel, an emerald flare drifting like living aurora in the inky depths. It widened, morphed into twin lantern eyes, and vanished. Memory of the titanic shape glimpsed days earlier surged, a leviathan shadow stalking their course. He glanced skyward. Obscurion hovered restless, tail lashing. Whatever prowled below, dragon instinct recognized it as kin to ancient fears. By sunrise the titan of Braavos loomed ahead, bronze colossus straddling the mouth of the lagoon. Trumpets blared as all foreign ships passed, and a yawning gate in its belly swallowed them into sheltered waters. On deck, Daeron murmured low Valyrian phrases that coaxed the dragons to climb into clouds until out of mortal sight. Only after the sloop docked at the Ragman's harbor did they spiral down to an uninhabited mudflat northeast of the city. Their Rhaenys veiled each beast with netting dusted in powdered obsidian, dulling scale shine. Braavos has long memories, she reminded Jon. Aegon the Conqueror never burned these canals only because their fleet hid in fog. They will not greet 3 new worms with open arms. Davos introduced them to his Braavosi contact, a lean Bravo named Saladoran, who wore mocking smiles like jewelry. He ushered them through winding alleys, over arched bridges crowded with spice vendors and masked courtesans, until they reached a low marble house where the door carved in the shape of a weeping face swung inward at their knock. Inside waited Moqorro, a red priest of Erlor with skin black as char, eyes alight like coals. Fire danced in a single brazier, painting the walls with restless patterns. Jon felt heat bloom against his chest where dawn rose rested. Moqorro bowed. "The flames foretold your coming, Azor Ahai reborn," he intoned, voice deep as distant drums. Jon stiffened. Daeron's hand strayed to sword hilt. Rhaenys met the priest's gaze squarely. "Prophets are many," she said. "Truth is scarce. We seek passage east, not sermons." Moqorro's smile never faltered. "Then truth and passage may share a keel." He revealed a galley, black horizon, set to depart 2 nights hence, captained by Volantine traders, sympathetic to the Lord of Light. They would skirt Valeria's smoking ruins under cover of darkness, avoiding slave ports, and make for Korth before turning south toward the ghost city of Asshai. Rhaenys, wary, asked what price such charity demanded. Moqorro gestured to Jon. "Light for the coming darkness," he said. "When the stars bleed, the prince must wield a heart inflamed." Jon said nothing, but in his mind he saw those same bleeding stars from earlier visions, dripping rubies across a frozen wasteland. Whether coincidence or cunning, the priest's words struck bone, while Davos supervised loading of provisions. Salt pork, smoked fish, barrels of fresh water. Jon slipped away across stone-ribboned plazas. He wandered until he reached the Iron Bank's austere facade, its pillars veined with rare jade. There he mailed 2 letters, one to Ned Stark, carried by Braavosi courier via White Harbor, the other addressed simply to the men who stand beyond the wall. In it, he wrote of visions of blue-eyed shadows, of dragons returning, of a winter deeper than any sung by bards. This he entrusted to a black-capped raven purchased at no small coin, certain only that the message must fly. Evening cloaked the lagoon in violet when Jon returned to the mudflat. He found Daeron sparring with Rhaenys, Valerian blades flashing under torches, while Obscurion watched, nictitating membranes sliding over golden irises. Jon joined the practice, dawn rose weaving arcs of black water steel. Sweat soon darkened tunic laces, yet each clang of metal calmed turmoil within him. Afterward, they sat on overturned skiffs. Rhaenys spoke of her childhood in Sunspear, racing sandsteeds with her cousins before the usurper's war left the Red Mountains scarred. Daeron revealed he had once studied in the Citadel, forging 3 links before abandoning dusty tomes for a knight's vows at Summerhall's ruins. Jon listened, realizing each carried a past fractured by Targaryen collapse. Like broken swords reforged in dragonflame, they sought new shape in him. Sails unfurled before dawn. Black horizon glided from Braavos under a moon the hue of old bone. As oars dipped in whispered rhythm, Jon stood at the stern deck, staring westward toward twilight, where Winterfell lay cloaked beneath a mantle of snow. He wondered if Ned held his letter, if the direwolf still howled in the godswood, if Robert's war horns already echoed off the walls. A pang tore through him. Homesickness braided with guilt, but Rhaenys' gloved hand upon his shoulder steadied him. "Home is where your dragons rest," she murmured. Jon forced a nod. 3 days of steady rowing carried them past the smoking spires of Valyria's shattered peninsula. Fanged cliffs jutted like the ribcage of a corpse. Even leagues offshore the air tasted of brimstone. Waves hissed dangerously warm. Geysers of steam erupted among black islands where no birds nested. The sailors crossed themselves with 7-pointed stars or muttered pleas to fire god and sea god alike. But the dragons, flown high enough to catch colder winds, beat steady paths along the horizon, their silhouettes mirroring the jagged peaks below. Ancient kin, acknowledging ancestral tomb. Just after midday on the fourth day, disaster struck. A sudden roar split the ocean surface beside the galley, sending sheets of foam higher than the masthead. From the churn rose the leviathan, a gargantuan serpent, scales mottled green and opal, barnacles crusting the ridged spine that crested cresting waves. Its eyes shone with hungry intelligence. The deck lurched as sailors scrambled, arrows thumped harmlessly off slick hide. Jon sprinted to portside rail, shouting for Obscurion. The beast's maw gaped, revealing rows of teeth, long as scythes. With terrifying speed, it coiled around the galley's midships, hull groaning under crushing pressure. Fire answered Jon's cry. Obscurion plummeted from cloud cover in a spear of night, bronze mavis and blue sapphira flanking. A thunderclap of wings engulfed the gale. Obscurion's jaws opened. A torrent of black-red flame poured, vaporizing seawater into instant fog. The serpent shrieked, thrashing. Steam and smoke mingled into opaque shroud. Jon vaulted onto a spar, dawn rose drawn. Rhaenys yelled something lost to din, but he leapt anyway, plunging blade first into the serpent's eye, sinking to elbow and jelly and vitreous humor. The monster's convulsion hurled him sideways. Only Rhaenys' quick grip on his cloak kept him from tumbling into churning depths. Together they scrambled back as Obscurion unleashed another blast. This time flame struck wound, boring through bone. An awful hiss accompanied a geyser of boiling blood. The serpent released the ship, writhing once before sinking in a plume of scarlet. When silence returned, charred stench hung heavy. The black horizon listed but remained afloat. The coils crushing had splintered railings and stove two rowlocks, yet by miracle the keel held. Crewfolk fell to knees, offering thanks to gods old and new. Jon wiped gore from Donrose, chest still hammering from adrenaline. Rhaenys looked him over, found only bruises, and let breath escape. Reckless, she scolded softly, though relief shaded her eyes. Jon shrugged. Reckless wins wars sometimes. She laughed, a short bark, then sobered. Reckless also forges widows. At that, he had no retort. The journey resumed with hawk-eyed watches posted fore and aft. Each night Jon dreamt of the serpent's dying, glare merging with vision of blue shadows. Different monsters, same hunger. He suspected the truth Moqorro hinted. That forces older than Robert's rebellion had awakened. Dragons were not alone and stirring. A week later, ivory towers of Qarth shimmered atop the horizon like mirages sprung from arid air. The galley anchored outside black-green city walls, and 3 dragon shapes descended, causing an uproar in markets lining the gates. The pure-born, robed in spangled indigo, met them with jeweled smiles and hollow words of welcome. Jon recognized avarice glittering behind courtesy. He kept dragons distant, parleying under shade of serpent-carved archways. A copper-skinned merchant princess named Exo Kwa Jimi offered 13 silver-wired elephants to purchase a single dragon egg. Merely for display, she assured. But Jon declined with a curt bow. Rumors traveled faster than trade winds. Before long, warlocks in blue lips watched their progress from shadowed doorways, muttering spells that sent translucent butterflies flitting round Jon's head. Rhaenys whispered that Qarth's wonders often hid daggers. They departed at sunrise, leaving only ripples of speculation behind. South of Qarth, the Jade Gates opened into summer sea. Green waters warm against hull planks. Here sailed craft of every shape. Slaver galleys from Meereen, spice junks of Yi Ti, and wyvern-proud whalers from Leng. Jon ordered wide berth whenever a banner bearing broken manacles approached. The dragons deterred pursuit, yet Rhaenys noted black sails painted with red krakens haunting the horizon. She suspected ironborn reavers contracted by Lannister gold. At night they doused every lantern, guiding by star and priest fire. Moqorro recited hymns that set the brazier alight, with smokeless flame illuminating chart and compass alone. On the 31st day since leaving Winterfell skies, jagged spires rose from the sea like the claws of a slumbering giant. Asshai by the shadow unfolded, a city of black stone older than memory, where no children laughed and foreign scents of jasmine and brimstone mingled. Even the dragons grew restless as they circled above basalt towers honeycombed with windows that never glowed. Jon felt a prickle run his spine the instant boot touched shore. The very ground seemed to thrum, as if heartbeat pulsed in bedrock. Cloaked figures awaited them at the docks, lanterns carved from smoky quartz, emitting pale violet light. One stepped forward, robe of midnight feathers blending into dark. She removed her hood to reveal a face alabaster smooth, eyes pupilless, and shimmering silver. "I am Quaithe," she said, voice echo soft. "We have dreamt your coming since the stars were young." Mokoro bowed deeply. "The prince seeks the lore of bond and flame." Quaithe's expression remained unreadable. "He shall find lore. Whether he finds peace, no mask may foretell." She gestured inland. "Come, the dragons will follow. They are welcome in the shadow where light fears to tread." Through labyrinthine streets they walked, past silent markets where vendors sold candles that burned with darkness rather than light, past wells whose waters shimmered like liquid glass. Crumbling temples loomed, their glyphs shifting when glanced askew. Jon sensed eyes tracking from every alley archway yet glimpsed no faces. Finally, they reached a wide plaza bordered by 4 colossal statues: woman, man, dragon, and shadow, each eroded into near facelessness. At the center rose a circular dais inlaid with concentric rings of ochre stone. Quaithe bid Jon step upon the innermost ring. As he did, the dragon trio landed on outer edges, wings folding in perfect symphony. Mokoro lit braziers at cardinal points. Blue fire bloomed soundlessly. Rhaenys and Daeron stood watchful at perimeter. Quaithe extended a slender ivory blade. "Cut but a drop," she whispered, indicating Jon's palm. Hesitation flickered. He recalled Baelor's binding of Obscurion at Winterfell. Steeling himself, he sliced shallowly. Crimson flecked stone, sizzling on contact. Instantly sigils flared to life across each ring, first red, then orange, gold, and finally ghostly white. A current surged through his bones. Flames rose, swirling pillars capturing symbols that spun around him. Wolf, dragon, sword, crown, star, snowflake. In the whirl he heard voices: Lyanna's entreaty, Ned's steady oath, Baelor's dying pledge, Robert's roar, a mother unknown singing lullaby in lilting Valyrian. Then deeper still, a voice ancient as grinding glaciers: "Night gathers. Burn or be devoured." Frozen dread clutched him, but at its core, a coal of defiance sparked. Jon summoned memory of Winterfell's hearth, of Robb's laughter, of Bran's fearless climbs, of Arya's fierce grin. Warmth flared, met cold, and balanced. The sigils exploded outward in cascading light. A shockwave rocked the plaza, scouring stone dust into spiraling vortices. When silence fell, the rings lay dull once more. Jon stood unmoved at center, palm wound miraculously closed, blood gone. Quaithe inclined her head. "The balance holds. You are heir to dawn and dusk. Remember, every flame casts a shadow, every snow conceals fire." Before Jon could ask what trial he had passed, she turned to Rhaenys. "You must guard him until the final shadow falls. Failure will mean the night has no end." Rhaenys' hand tightened on hilt. She nodded without pretense. That evening, quarters were prepared within a low black stone manse overlooking the sullen river Ash. Windows faced east where pallid moonlight barely crept. Jon rested yet sleep proved slippery. Visions pressed behind eyelids. Robert's army at Winterfell's gates, Tywin's lions marching under blood-red dusk, Lysa Arryn clutching the Eyre's battlements as ravens failed to arrive. Worst of all, he dreamt of Ned Stark standing knee-deep in a crimson pool, ice shattered in his grasp, a weirwood's face burning behind him. Jon awoke drenched in cold sweat. He left the manse, walking until basalt streets gave way to windswept cliff. Obscurion lay coiled there, her tail wrapped around Sapphira and Mavis like a living rampart. Jon pressed forehead to her scales, pulse sensing to her rumbling breath. Peace followed. At dawn, Quaithe taught him first of the dragon words of binding, syllables that bridged thought and flame. He practiced for hours, coaxing Obscurion to ignite measured bursts, rather than torrents, to hover in stillness, to carry him with wingtips nearly brushing the river's black mirror without spilling a ripple. Days stretched into weeks. He learned to meditate atop the dragon's spine, sensing cold currents of night sky and hot pockets of volcanic updraft. He learned that each dragon's fire burned with unique resonance, Obscurion's deep and sonorous, Sapphira's bright and lilting, Mavis's throaty and rolling like distant thunder. In return they learned him, his moods, his doubts, his fierce protective heart. Rhaenys and Daeron trained beside him, forming aerial formations that could slice through storm clouds like razors. Moqorro coached him in high Valyrian invocations, said to fortify spirit against cold ones. Jon accepted all, storing knowledge like arrows in quiver. Yet training could not stall war. Ravens reached Asshai bearing grim tidings. Robert's host had breached the neck by bloody work at Moat Cailin, now encamped outside Winterfell. Ned had mustered bannermen, Manderley, Glover, Reed, Bolton, yet refused to unleash dragons Ned did not possess. Tywin offered alliance sealed by marriage to Cersei, which Ned spurned. In response, Lannister armies marched from the west, sacking Tallheart lands. Worse still, whispers claimed Stannis encircled Dragonstone, planning to seize Queen Rhaella and Viserys. Rhaegar had vanished after skirmish at the Trident, presumed dead or captive. Jon read each report in candlelight, anger mounting like storm charge. One night, as red comet blazed unexpectedly across sky, Quaithe met him on the cliff. The blade of morning starlight now streaks horizon, she said, eyes reflecting crimson. The moment of choosing nears. Remain, and perfect the harmony of ice and fire. Depart and wield rough melody in realm of discord. Jon gazed at the comet, feeling its heat though miles above. He pictured Ned and Catelyn, Bran and Arya, Robb standing sword-bared atop Winterfell's gatehouse. He pictured Robert's hammer descending, Tywin's gold swords glinting, small folk caught beneath wheels of power. Training avails nothing if the realm is ash, he answered. Quaithe inclined head, as if expecting the decision. Then carry with you the gift of shadow flame. She presented a small obsidian orb, carved with interlocking sigils. Speak the name of the darkness you would banish, and the orb will reveal its heart, though such revelations bear price. Preparations began at once. Moqorro secured a great cog of Yiddish make, broad deck capable of launching dragons in staggered flight. Davos plotted course north along coastlines rarely patrolled, using storms as cloak. All. Rhaenys sharpened 3 dragonglass spears to barbed lethality. Daeron forged chain saddles that would allow Jon to maneuver mid-air on foot if needed. On their last evening in Asshai, Quaithe found Jon again beside the river. Seek the heart of winter, but do not linger, she warned. For in every mirror of ice hides flame unsated. Jon started to ask her meaning, but she vanished, leaving only faint shimmer in night air. Black horizon the set and slipped from Shadow Harbor, under eclipse dark sky. Dragons soared overhead, silhouette merging with crescent of waning moon. Winds favored them, pushing north with unseasonal urgency. Jon practiced incantations nightly, coaxing small orbs of flame into shapes. Wolfhead, sword, weirwood leaf, each dissolving when concentration wavered. He conferred with Rhaenys and Daeron about battle strategy. Dragons would strike siege engines while Jon sought Robert's command tent, avoidance of civilian harm imperative. As they crossed the stepstones, a violent squall struck, tossing ship like cork. Lightning forked violet across tumbling clouds, and from those rents descended shapes on leathery wings. Wyverns, half the dragon's size but cunning in packs. They attacked with shrill screeches, claws tearing at rigging. Crew scrambled, Davos shouting orders. Jon whistled, the high piercing note Baelor had taught. Obscurion roared from gloom, banking into dive. Flames blossomed, illuminating green wyvern hide as it shredded beneath black fire. Sapphira and Mavis joined, weaving between mast and mainsail to chase clipping predators. Rain hissed off scalded flesh, One wyvern crashed to deck, thrashing until Davos men skewered it with pikes. Battle lasted mere minutes before creatures retreated, leaves in storm. Yet the skirmish served warning. Skies would be contested. When skies cleared, they passed Shipbreaker Bay and turned north toward newly captured White Harbor. Smoke-stained horizon where Manderley fleet smoldered. Jon's gut twisted. At dusk, disguised as traders, they rowed ashore near a ruined lighthouse. Jon strode among charred timbers, finding corpses of men and women he recognized from visits as a boy. Fish scale aprons, harbor bells twisted into melted lumps. He knelt beside a dead child clutching wooden wolf, throat tight. Daron placed hand on his shoulder, but words failed them both. That night, he convened war council. "We strike Winterfell at dawn 2 days hence," he declared, voice low yet iron-forged. "We break Robert's siege, but we do not slay the realm he someday must rule. Dragons will destroy rams and towers only. I will challenge Robert beneath the heart tree. Single combat. If I fall, Rhaenys commands withdrawal east to Dragonstone." Rhaenys' mouth tightened. "And if Robert refuses single combat, I will accept," Jon answered. "He's a man of pride." Davos murmured agreement. The Storm Lord has never shied from duel. At first light, their assault began. Dragons fell from sky like thunderbolts, wings unfurling moments before impact to buffet smoke across camps. Obscurion bathed siege towers in precise gouts of flame that melted iron hinges without engulfing tents beyond. Mavis shattered trebuchet arms with tail swipes. Sapphira dove to snatch barrels of pitch mid-arc, hurling them harmless into snow. Panic roiled Robert's ranks. Soldiers stumbling over stampeding horses, but casualties remained mercifully light. Jon directed strikes from above, signaling with horn blasts. Twice he guided fire away from fleeing washerwomen. Once he ordered full refrain when men dropped weapons and raised open palms. As columns scattered, Jon spied the Baratheon command standard, a crowned black stag on field of gold, flapping near the King's Road. He descended, dismounting before the heart tree in Winterfell's Godswood, its red leaves fluttering like bloody petals. En route-covered clearing, Robert awaited in fur-rimmed mail, warhammer gripped in meaty fist. Frosted breath curled from his beard. Eyes widened seeing Jon's face. Ned's bastard. Or the dragon whelp rumor whispers. Jon unsheathed dawn rose. Cold light rippled along obsidian edge. "I am Aegon of House Targaryen," he said, voice carrying among gnarled trunks. "Son of Lyanna Stark and Rhaegar. Raised snow, forged in Winterfell's hearth. I challenge you, Robert Baratheon, to decide this war with steel, not slaughter." "Then shall." Robert barked, laugh harsh as splitting oak. "A dragon hatchling thinks to dance with storms? So be it." He hefted hammer. "If I win, your dragons die and your claim ends." Jon nodded. "If I win, you yield siege and swear truce until a great council decides rightful throne." Robert shrugged bullish shoulders. "We'll see whose gods favor which." They saluted, Jon touching blade to brow, Robert thumping hammer to chest, and circled in snow dappled with red leaf shadows. Robert struck first, hammer swinging wide. Jon ducked, feeling wind of its passing. Years of practice with Robb played through muscle memory. He darted inside arc, slashed at vambrace, carving shallow line that bled. Robert grunted, pivoted with surprising agility, hammer butt catching Jon's ribs. Pain flared, but leather dampened blow. Jon rolled away, breathing sharp. He recalled Baelor's maxim: ice for steadiness, fire for resolve. He stilled heartbeat, letting cold focus narrow world to hammer. Footwork, breath. Robert charged, snow crunching. Jon sidestepped, carving second line across thigh. Blood spattered white ground. The Storm Lord snarled, but eyes kindled with respect. They traded flurries, hammer pummeling bark chips from ancient trunks, blade scoring chain links. Each graze took toll. Jon's arm numbed, Robert's breathing labored. Finally, Robert feinted low, then unleashed overhead swing formidable as avalanche. Jon raised Donro's crossguard to intercept. Steel met black steel. Shock shuttered bones. But he pivoted with impact, sliding inside again, and drove pommel against Robert's temple. The larger man staggered. In same motion, Jon pressed obsidian edge to thick neck. "Yield," he panted. Robert's eyes, unfocused, flicked to hammer hand, still raised but trembling. At last he let weapon fall. Snow puffed. "7 hells," he rasped. "You fight like a wolf with dragon's heart." Jon eased blade away. Breath plumed both men. "Will you honor truce?" Robert wiped blood from brow, looked toward keep where gray walls towered silent. No more war, for now." He spat red, then offered gauntleted hand. Jon clasped forearm. In that grip, a kingdom swayed. Horn blasts signaled ceasefire. Dragons glided to perch on outer walls, their silhouettes stark against pale sky. Baratheon troops lowered standards. Stark banners remained, unstained. Ned emerged onto battlements, astonishment etched deep. Nearby, Catelyn held Bran while tears froze on cheeks. Across yard, Tywin's messenger watched from saddle, calculating a new adieu. Inside Great Hall, council convened under direwolf and dragon banners, hung side by side. Robert drank heavily, but kept word. Siege lifted. Hosts camped south until council in King's Landing could gather. Letters, bearing seals of all great houses, to be dispatched. Tywin's envoy delivered renewed proposal, marriage between Jon and Cersei, or, failing that, Sansa, and was politely told negotiations would await council. Rhaenys remained wary. Daeron posted dragon sentries above each gate. But for first time since Baelor's death, hope glimmered. That night, Jon walked Godswood with Ned, silent beneath Weirwood's curious gaze. At Trunk's base they knelt. Ned spoke first, voice hoarse. Lyanna would have been proud beyond words. Jon swallowed emotion thick in throat. "I am only here because you kept your promise." Ned shook head. "No, Dot. You are here because you chose honor where fire might have chosen wrath." They clasped hands, father and son at last, without shadow of lies between them. Later Jon huddled beside hearth in his childhood chamber. On table lay Quaid's obsidian orb. He turned it thrice, spoke softly. "Show me the darkness I must face." The orb smoldered, then cast image onto wall. Icy plains where pale riders advanced, eyes burning azure, frost cracking under skeletal hooves. At their head rode a figure crowned in crystalline horns, carrying greatsword of rime that trailed mist. In sky above them circled a dragon corpse, stitched by ice, wings tattered yet beating. Jon's breath left in a hiss. Fire might win thrones, but winter sought souls. A knock sounded. Rhaenys entered, bearing scroll, bearing raven seal. "From the wall," she said. Jon broke wax, scanned. Lord Commander Corgyle wrote of dead vistas, walking at Frostfangs, of wildling villages slaughtered by shapes of darkness, of ravens refusing to fly east. Jon folded parchment slowly. The orb's illusory frost lingered in fireplace glow. He looked at Rhaenys. "Council must wait," he said. "Our war is north." She placed a hand over his. "Then dragons fly beyond the wall." Outside, snow began to fall, silent, persistent. Each flake a whisper that long night was only just beginning. Obscurion raised head from tower perch, sensing distant chill. Her golden eyes narrowed at black horizon. Within their mirrored depths danced twin reflections. The flicker of hearth fire, and the faint, malignant glow of an unseen army's torches, carried through unending winter. Jon closed his eyes, feeling pulse of dragon and crunch of snow beneath boots yet untraveled. He felt Robert's truce ticking like sandglass, Tywin's schemes coiling, Melisandre's flames beckoning, Quaithy's riddles echoing. He felt, too, Baelor's voice, "Protect the realm." And he answered, steady, resolved. Tomorrow he would gather council, Ned, Robert, Rhaenys, Davos, Masters, even Lannister envoy, and say words not uttered in generations. The real enemy is the one that does not bleed. Some would scoff, others blanch. But seeds would root. For now, he sat in quiet hush of Winterfell night, listening to wind hum through cracks like distant dragon song harmonized with wolf howl. Balance holds, Quaithids had said. Yet he understood. Balance is not stillness but the endless motion of flame and frost in locked embrace. He was product of both, tasked to keep the dance from falling to either's devouring. In this purpose he found unexpected calm, and beneath that calm a fierce joy, born not of destiny's burden, but of chance to shape chords of the song into melody that might, just might, carry dawn's first light across centuries of midnight. He rose, fastened cloak, and walked into snowfall to stand beside Obscurion, resting palm upon warm scale. Overhead and beast alike the comet blazed anew, searing line across velvet sky. A reminder hat even darkest fabric can be stitched with fire bright enough to guide worlds. They watched together until last hearth embers dimmed, and first raven croaked waking notes, welcoming the fragile promise of day. K. Soft dawn filtered through narrow slits in Winterfell's eastern walls, graying the embers in the great hearth, and frosting each carved beam with gradual light. Outside, fresh snow muffled the courtyard, smoothing away tracks of chaos from the day before. Yet the hush struck Jon as false, like silk draped over steel, because tension still pulsed beneath every stone. He had slept little, his cot beside Obscurion's makeshift eyrie on a half-collapsed watchtower. Dragons emitted heat enough to render cloaks unnecessary, but anxiety chased any lingering warmth from his mind. Visions of blue-eyed riders haunted him, the orb's revelation etched behind his eyelids. Each time he closed them, he smelled iron-cold wind off frozen canyons, and heard the crunch of brittle snow under armies that did not breathe. He roused before the first cookfire spark. Swords on patrol stiffened, but recognizing him, lowered pikes and offered short bows. He found Ned already awake in the godswood, facing the heart tree with lips moving soundlessly. Jon paused at the edge. His father, no, his uncle by blood yet father in every truth that mattered, seemed carved from winter itself, a quiet sentinel among branches draped in red. Eventually Ned turned, surprise and weary pride mingling in his gray gaze. They shared a silent greeting, one born of long familiarity, before walking together toward the inner yard. By the time they reached the hall, the council had begun to gather. Robert slouched at the head of a trestle table, half-finished tankard in hand, though the wine within smelled watered down, perhaps a concession to bruised ribs. His hammer rested against the wall within reach. Sir Barristan Selmy had arrived in the night, armor dusted with frost, and now stood to Robert's right. To Ned's left sat Sir Roderick, Maester Luwin, and Lord Wyman Manderley, the latter breathing harsh from the hurried ride past burning holdfasts. Across from them, Petyr Baelish leaned near a small brazier, smile masked, eyes sharpening at each new arrival. Catelyn stood behind Ned's chair, chin raised stiffly, jaw set. Davos was present as well, rough salt wolf among lords, but his steady calm anchored the room as surely as any highborn. On Jon's entrance murmurs rippled. There remained those who still saw a bastard regardless of new titles. Rhaenys and Daeron trailed him, dragon leathers creaking, and their presence drew wary glances from even seasoned knights. Outside, three shadows loomed against sky's pale canvas, Obscurion atop the broken first keep, Mavis on the rookery roof, blue Sapphira cradled in the stable's courtyard. No one could forget such guardians. Robert's voice cut the whispers. Enough staring. Sit, Targaryen, or Stark, whichever you like this dawn. His attempt at jest rang flat, but a flicker of humor warmed his eyes. Jon inclined head and took seat adjacent to Ned. Maester Luwin cleared throat and unrolled a fresh parchment. We face three matters, my lords. The proposed Great Council in King's Landing, the Lannister advance through the west, and the uncertainties reported by Lord Commander Corgil concerning threats beyond the wall. Tywin's messenger, a lean man in red and gold, stepped forward, helm tucked beneath elbow. Lord Tywin sends assurances of support for a council, provided the Dragon Prince is wed to Lady Cersei. This union would stabilize. Robert's fist thundered against table. I know Tywin's terms, and they may wait until we've settled larger perils than his daughter's ambitions. He swung bloodshot eyes to Jon. Though I will grant, alliances do matter. Jon laced fingers, mindful of Catelyn's frost across the board. I will not decide marriage under duress. The realm has heavier chains to strike first. My father, Lord Stark, received a raven from Castle Black last night. The dead do not rest easy in the north. Silence descended. Even Petter's smirk faltered. Lewin produced the letter Jon had folded thrice. Lord Commander Corgyle writes of corpses risen near the Frostfangs, and wildlings driven south with tales of pale giants. He begs succor, particularly fire. Robert snorted. Wildling fears make poor counsel. Wildlings do not raise the dead, Ned said quietly. My brother Benjen, still First Ranger, mentions tracks that do not match man or beast. He uses the word white for them, but spells it W-I-G-H-T. That set even Sir Barristan frowning. White Walkers are children's stories, he murmured, yet uncertainty wavered in his veteran tone. They were stories before dragons flew over Winterfell yesterday, Davos remarked. Some tales wait. Jon drew Dawnrose, laying the flat across palms. Its rippling sheen mirrored flickering torchlight. I believe what Corgyle writes. I have seen glimpses in fire and in dreams. A host of ice that cares nothing for thrones. If our petty wars weaken us, we will stand like straw before a storm. Robert leaned back, tankard forgotten. Suppose you speak truth. What then? Do we march the whole of our armies into those frozen wastes? And who holds the south when Tywin tires of prospects and drives spears through riverlands? Down? Petyr sighed theatrically. Chaos is a ladder, your grace, but too many climbers and the rungs snap. Rhaenys spoke for the first time, voice smooth as desert dusk. We do not need hosts, only dragonflame and steel that has tasted the forge of gods. Legends say Valyrian steel can wound the others. Dragonglass destroys them. We possess both in limited measure. Ned's gaze sharpened. Dragonglass caches remain on Dragonstone. Valyrian blades number fewer than 20 in the realm. Ice is broken, but reforging may yield 2 swords. And no. Jon remembered orb vision of Ned wielding shattered ice. He shivered. Then we gather what we have and test if legend holds. Robert grunted. And where will you test? You'd fly beyond the wall? Leave your throne claim in abeyance? Jon met his stare. If I claim a throne while the dead claim the living, the crown is worthless iron. He pivoted to Ned. I will fly north. Father. The familiar title slipped out unbidden. Winterfell needs defense if walkers breach the wall. You know its passes. Now. Catelyn interjected icy. He will not leave again on some doomed errand, while Lannisters attack our flanks. Rhaenys fixed her with measured gaze. If the wall falls, Lannister spears will not save your sons. Tension crackled. Ned placed soothing hand on his wife's. Cat, I swore to protect the north. Sometimes that means facing storms before they break. She trembled, then withdrew hand, jaw clenching. Robert rose, robe sweeping. 7 hells. You are a boy with dragons, yet speak more sense than half these lords. Very well, go north if you must. I will accompany you to the wall. Nay. Gasps erupted. Barristan murmured caution, but Robert raised hand. If I see these monsters myself, Tywin can wait. Stannis will hold Storm's End. Renly can prance about the court. And if your white shadows prove fiction, then I return in time to crown or crush as needed. Petyr's fingers tapped hilt of dagger in idle rhythm. Bold, your grace. But absent a king, thrones invite occupation. Robert smirked. Tywin knows better than take my seat while I draw breath. And if he tries, the dogs of Fleabottom will feast on gold cloaks. Jon inclined head. Your presence would lend weight. We depart within 3 days. Preparations consumed Winterfell. Smiths hammered night and day, forging arrowheads of dragonglass that Rhaenys and Daeron unearthed from Baelor's secret supply. Black shards sharp as shame. Maester Lewin coaxed recipes from dusty tomes for wildfire-infused resin to coat bolts. Manderley sent ravens south, diverting grain wagons northward. Cross courtyards, Baratheon and Stark men drilled together uneasily. Deerwolves sniffed warhounds. Horses shied at dragon roars, but steadied under firm grooms. One evening, Jon sought the crypts, descending spiral stairs lit by flickering torches. The chill deepened, but weighed less than memories. He passed long rows of stone kings of winter and queens of stark hush, until he found Lyanna's statue. Roses no longer wilted at its base. Braavos had salvaged one blue winterflower, now frozen, and laid it gently upon her lap. Jon knelt, touching cold petals. "I go north," he whispered. "If prophecy binds me, then guide my blade as you once guided father's oath." Silence answered. Yet in stillness he sensed distant heartbeat, dragon to the south, wolf to the north, all converging. He rose when footsteps echoed. Ned emerged, torches carving shadows across lined face. "I come here when burden grows heavy," he said, "to feel the weight of those whose burdens ended." He placed hand on Lyanna's stone. "She would have loved to see you ride a dragon." Jon managed faint grin. "She might also scold me for running headlong into darkness. She did plenty of that herself." Ned exhaled. "Jon, whatever comes, remember you have more than fire. Ice runs deep in Stark veins. It tempers flame." They embraced beneath granite gaze of kings long gone. On the second night, Tywin's envoy attempted escape. Guards found him scaling outer wall with grappling hook. Under interrogation he confessed message hidden in boot heel, meant for Casterly Rock. Robert gone north, seize throne. Pettyr volunteered to intercept Raven traffic. Within an hour a new Raven flew south bearing forged report. Robert dead of snow fever. Lannisters urged to remain in west. Jon glimpsed Baelish's calculating smile and wondered whether winning this game required such serpents or merely bred them. Before first light of departure, Jon visited the rookery. Bran perched atop parapet, despite broken legs still healing in splinted brace. Face alive with wonder as he watched dragons preening. Jon tousled his hair. "Mine Maester Lewin while I'm away." Bran grinned. "Bring me a feather from the wall." They clasped forearms. Arya darted upstairs moments later, thrusting small bundle at Jon. "Fresh knit scarf of direwolf gray. Keep your neck warm," she ordered, voice wavering. Jon wrapped it, kissed her brow, and whispered promise to spar upon return. She hugged him fiercely, then fled tears. In courtyard, Robert mounted a massive destrier named Thunder. Fur-lined cloak billowed. Hammer rested across saddle pommel. Barristan positioned at his flank, armor-polished mirror-bright Dottie. Braavos stood ready to captain a supply column trailing behind main party. Wagons loaded with casks of lamp oil and smoked beef. Rhaenys and Daeron checked harness buckles on dragons. Mavis growled low approval. Obscurion lowered foreleg, allowing Jon to climb astride. When he settled, the scarf Arya made fluttered beneath black scales. A threat of home against night. Ned approached wearing Stark armor beneath fur. Catelyn held Rickon, eyes red. Sansa stood beside, face porcelain. But when Jon met her gaze, she offered small curtsy of genuine concern. Ned pressed rolled parchment into Jon's gauntlet. Map of all last Harf's secret trails. Benjen marked white waystones, he said. Follow the direwolf runes. They skirt broken lakes. They clasped once more. Words failed. Snowflakes twirled delicate as ash. Obscurion unfurled wings, scattering powder into spirals. At Jon's signal, she vaulted skyward. Mavis and Saphira followed, wing beats thunderous yet graceful. Robert's host cheered below, banners snapping. The dragons banked north, guiding cavalry and foot through winter-blanketed fields. Travel progressed swiftly. Dragons scouted days' march ahead, melting treacherous ice on fords so wagons could cross safely. At Queen's Crown's forlorn tower, they met survivors of hearths raised by Lannister outriders. Women and children huddled in cellars, grateful for bread and dragonborn warmth. Robert left a third of provisions and tasked Sir Barristan to escort them to Deepwood Moty. Word of the Storm King's mercy traveled faster than ravens, mending some rifts. 3 leagues shy of Last Hearth an ominous sign awaited. A pile of horses, their eyes crusted with frost, bodies arranged in spiral pattern. Saphira landed beside, her flame-revealed hooves severed with clean icy cuts, blood crystallized. Jon dismounted, heart pounding. Daeron examined remains. No tracks, he said. Snow hides nothing. It simply is. Robert cursed softly. As twilight bled, they reached Last Hearth's palisade. Its lord, Great Jon Umber, greeted them with booming oath, fiery beard bristling. He declared 20 men missing north of the gift, vanished amid unnatural snowfall. Jon listened keenly. Each report mirrored ranger accounts. They slept little, planning route to the wall. Rather than King's Road, they would cut cross-country along Umbra River, then follow Umber's Pass to Long Lake where Benjen's markers began. During third night of camp, Jon dreamt again. In the dream, he walked endless ice field beneath broken moon. Shapes moved at periphery, tall armored figures radiant with frost. One approached, face a mask of reflective blue, eyes twin stars of winter. It raised hand. Between fingers danced snowflake that spun faster, becoming blade of crystal. Jon reached for Dawnrose, but the dagger crumbled, shards scattering like embers into snow. Wind howled, carrying whispers. We were ever the night, you were ever the dawn. All dawns end a wall. He woke gasping, fingers clenched white around real dagger hilt. Rhaenys knelt across embers, stirring tea. She offered cup. I felt you thrash, she said quietly. Jon drank, warmth steadying. He told her of dream. She listened, then produced ghostgrass pouch. Chew 1 seed, when visions strike. It lends clarity. He thanked her, though doubted clarity could quell dread. At Long Lake's southern shore, they found Benjen Stark. Lean, frost-rimmed, he greeted Jon with fierce hug, then bowed to Robert and dragons alike. His rangers, barely 24, looked half dead. Gaunt cheeks wind-burned. Benjen spoke frankly. A white had slain 4 men the week previous. They burned bodies. Strange hunters faced them at dusk, tall as umbers yet silent. Ghost tracks appeared overnight, leading nowhere. And a horn, deep and mournful, had echoed from beyond Frostfang's 2 nights running. 3 blasts. No ranger alive had heard 3 blasts in living memory. The others are moving, Benjen concluded, voice hollow. Council by firelight followed. Benjen argued for sealing all wall gates besides Castle Black, abandoning Eastwatch and Greyguard to concentrate forces. Robert bristled at thought of retreat. Jon suggested dragons patrol beyond the wall, carrying ranger scouts to map enemy movement. Barristan objected that north winds unpredictable. A dragon down far from firewood would weaken. Davos recommended setting caches of oil along Inner Curtain to create ring of flame on short notice. Rhaenys believed Orb of Quaithe could warn of large-scale approach. They tested in dark. Jon whispered desired target. The armies of ice. Orb flickered, revealing serried ranks still miles distant, marching slowly but inexorably. Decision reached. Ride hard for Castle Black. Reinforce, then launch reconnaissance flights. Robert left Ser Barristan with half of household troops at Shadow Tower to guard western flank. Great Jon took second force to Eastwatch, aiming to evacuate small folk at Hardhome and salvage ships for retreat along coast if necessary. Castle Black's black stone rose from snow swirl like a stubby spear. Smokestacks exhaled weak plumes, garrison thinned by ravages. Lord Commander Corgyle met them atop steps, relief briefly softening stern features. Samwell Tarly, plump, cheeks red, hovered behind Featherquill. Jon clasped Sam's hand, heart warmed. Corgyle wasted no time. He walked them along Wall's edge, where glimpses of something like dark lightning flickered in far north sky. I have never seen such lights, he said. They twist green and purple, but cold as void. Robert leaned on parapet, lips pursed. "I will believe when I feel the enemy's breath." Jon stared across white sea of forest and frost. He already felt it. Next morning, Jon mounted Obscurion and rose above the wall, accompanied by Rhaenys on Sapphira. Below, Umberhorn sounded farewell as they crossed into true north. Pines disappeared beneath swirling drifts. Open tundra stretched, featureless save windswept dunes. They flew until sun hung pale disk, then banked toward Fist of the First Men, a ring fort of stone once used by rangers. Smoke spiral rose from inside. Jon's pulse raced. They descended cautiously. Within ring, dozens of wildlings huddled around pit fires, women clutching infants, men armed with spears. Jon recognized among them Mance Rayder, the self-styled king beyond the wall. Cloak patchwork of silk and fur. He stepped forward, raising empty hands when dragons landed. "Parley," he called. "Our enemy is same as yours." Jon dismounted, Rhaenys flanking. Mance explained. Others scoured Frostfang villages, forcing tribes south. He offered fighters skilled in mountain terrain, if passage through wall granted for families. Rhaenys whispered caution, but Jon sensed truth in Mance's fear. They struck compact. Wildling scouts guide dragon sorties. In return, non-combatants gather at Queen's Gate for resettlement. A raven signed by Corgyle would authorize. Thus allied, they flew further north, guided by two thens riding behind Rhaenys. At dusk they crested ridge, overlooking valley blanketed by unnatural fog. Within fog moved legion, armored figures tall and lean, skin like bleached bone. At their forefront rode creature astride undead ice bear, banner of swirling snow. Behind them, at valley center, gargantuan shape lumbered. Dead giant bound in chains of frost. Jon's stomach dropped. Farther still, skeletal dragon soared, wings patchwork of membrane. Its rider wore crown of hoarfrost. Jon's breath misted though visor closed. He whispered to Orb. Vision repeated closer. The army marched, but not yet reached Gift. They had days, maybe a fortnight. He signaled Rhaenys. Ascend. Mid-air, white dragon altered course, senses catching warm blood. It charged. Screech a metallic wail. Jon urged Obscurion upward. Sky churned. Frostfire burst from undead dragon's maw, shards crystallizing mid-air. Obscurion rolled, flame-licking wingtip. Ice crackled but melted where black flame countered. Rhaenys unleashed Sapphira's azure inferno, searing ice scales from undead's chest, exposing rotted ribs. Yet creature felt no pain, only command. Battle spiraled upward, each beast vomiting elements, snowstorm churned by wing gusts. Jon drew Dawn Rose, chanting words, Quaithe taught. Blade pulsed faint heat. He guided Obscurion into dive, arrowing straight toward White Dragon's sternum. At last moment he leapt, drove dagger between ribs. Explosion of pale fire cascaded. Shockwave sent him tumbling. He caught strap on Obscurion's saddle by miracle, scrambling back as undead dragon shrieked and plummeted. Blue fire misfiring through cracked throat. It slammed onto frozen lake, ice shattering. Army below paused, heads tilting. Rider leapt from dying mount, cloak of whirling snowflakes swirling to cushion descent. Crowned figure raised gauntlet. Shards of ice whirled into spear, hurled upward. The spear clipped Sapphira's left wing. She faltered. Jon barked order. Rhaenys steadied dragon, but blood seeped where shard lodged. Obscurion roared, unleashing conflagration at spear wielder. But flame guttered against invisible field of cold that drew heat into void. Jon felt chill pierce his bones. They could not win alone. He signaled retreat. Rhaenys angled south. Obscurion followed, black smoke trailing. As they fled, undead dragon writhed, half submerged, ribcage aflame with ghost fire, but its eyes still glowed blue. It might rise again. They returned to Castle Black, battered, Sapphira landing hard. Jon dismounted, legs shaking. Maesters rushed to treat wing wound. Luckily Frost's spear missed bone. Robert approached, jaw tight. So, the stories breathed. Jon nodded, voice hoarse. An army and a dragon of ice. We have 10 days. Robert turned to barracks. Then we hold them here or die. Castle Black became forge of desperation. Every blacksmith from Mole's Town to Torrens Square was summoned, anvils ringing day and night. Wildlings guided by Mance arrived through secret tunnels, escorted families to Queensgate. Some Night's Watch muttered at free folk inside walls, but when a wildling girl handed a ranger her last dried fruit for his sick brother, murmurs ceased. Benjen drilled mixed units, rangers, Baratheon knights, wildling spearmen, teaching spearwall that braced behind trenches filled with oil. Braavos oversaw distribution of dragonglass arrowheads among archers. Jon practiced aerial maneuvers with Daeron's chain saddle, launching from Obscurion mid-hover, running along backbone to tail then leaping back, all while maintaining chant of binding. Rhaenys, arm in sling, directed from ground, her face pale but fierce. She insisted Sapphira would fly again. Maesters crafted splint of weirwood and dragonbone. Corgyle dispatched Raven to Tywin, inviting Lannister steel against common menace. Petty wagered Tywin would see profit in saving realm he intended to rule. Jon doubted the Raven would even reach Lannisport before battle joined. One afternoon, while snow scoured wall like rasp, Sam Tarly brought discovery. Among old archives he had found a crystal pyromancer's lens that intensified wildfire heat tenfold. Coupled with orb, perhaps they could direct focused sunflame upon white commanders. Jon encouraged experiment. They installed lens atop King's Tower. When sun peaked next morning, lens kindled patch of ice, 30 yards distant, to steam within breaths. Corgyle ordered duplicate lenses forged, but time short. 2 days before Vision's deadline, a horn from Eastwatch. 3 blasts. Runners arrived breathless. Greyjohn reported undead host, advancing along coast. Giants carrying shattered ships as bridges across icy inlets. Eastwatch's evacuation, incomplete. Robert cursed, donned staghelm. A council of urgency decided, dragons and mounted rangers would fly to Eastwatch, delay enemy, save civilians. Main force remained to defend Central Gate. Jon prepared Obscurion. Benjen and Rhaenys joined. Sapphira's wing partly mended. Robert insisted on riding too, but Corgyle persuaded him to hold Castle Black's morale. They departed at dusk, sky bruised indigo. Over shivering sea, moonlight shimmered off ice floes bearing silent warriors. Fires dotted Eastwatch's pier where civilians boarded longboats. Greyjohn's men fought rear guard, torches flickering against tidal wave of white forms. Giants waded shoulder deep, hurling driftwood logs as javelins. At their rear strode Frost Knight wielding mace of jagged crystal. Obscurion dove. Jon commanded plume of searing black flame that cut swathe through throng, melting ice beneath warriors, sending dozens plunging into frigid water. Sapphira mirrored from opposite flank. Her flame blazed sapphire, freezing then shattering foes where molten heat met sudden cold. Benjen's rangers released dragonglass-tipped arrows from saddles. Each arrow struck white and burst in ash-flecked frost. Giant roared when arrow lodged in eye. It toppled, crushing ranks. Still, the tide advanced. Frost Knight raised mace. Shattered air erupted in wave of cold that slapped dragons like wall. Obscurion's wings iced. She faltered. Jon felt numbness creep. He murmured binding, channeling inner heat. Ice cracked, fell. He guided dragon to slam tail across breakwater, toppling Knight into churning surf. But another rose behind, flanked by 4 smaller lieutenants. Night was thick with their blue gaze. Greyjohn signaled from pier. Evacuation complete. Jon sounded horn, 2 notes. Dragons banked, covering retreat. Mavis emerged from shadow. Daeron arrived after frantic flight from wall, joining formation. Combined, 3 dragons unleashed conflagration that scorched coastline, turning ice flows to geysers. Water hissed violent steam cloud, obscuring enemy sight. Under cover, last ship slipped away. When cloud thinned, whites paused. Reorganizing. Dragons regrouped above. Benjen yelled over wind. We cannot destroy them here but slowed their vanguard. Sapphira's wing trembled. Battle forced fissure and splint. Rhaenys clenched jaw against pain as Maester's stitches pulled. They retreated toward wall, burning brush to create firebreaks behind. Frost Knights did not pursue swiftly, perhaps calculating. But host trudged onward. Jon realized Eastwatch lost, but its fall bought precious hours. At Castle Black, final defenses stood ready. Oil trenches encircled outer grounds. Wildfire barrels positioned along rampart, each with fuse string to lantern hook. Lenses bristled like eyes across towers. Smiths fashioned spearheads of gleaming obsidian, set to long ash shafts. Sam oversaw rope and pulley lifts to drop deadfall logs spiked with dragonglass shards. Robert addressed assembled troops from base of wall. Breath steamed, voice booming. You have heard tales of night's terror. Now the tale ends here, on the boulder of men's resolve. Fight, and dawn may rise. Falter, and you will not see another winter. For there will be only winter forever. Cheers answered, nervous but firm. Night before battle, Jon found quiet corner of library and unrolled blank parchment. Teata. He wrote letters. One to Ned, gratitude and love. One to Arya, urging her wild spirit to endure. One to Catelyn, asking forgiveness for pain his origin caused. One to Robert, pleading to choose mercy after war. One to Tywin, warning that crowns mean little to ice. He sealed each with drop of candle wax, pressed Dawn Rose's pommel to mark swirl of ice and flame. He stepped onto wall's summit. Stars glittered, unblinking. Behind him, Rhaenys approached, slung arm freed now that wound bound tight. She carried 2 cups steaming with tang of mulled mint. They stood together at parapet. Below, Obscurion coiled near stables, thrumming soft. Dragons sensed storm. Rhaenys sipped, then spoke. Baelor believed balance meant sacrifice. Jon nodded. I fear how much balance will demand. She met his gaze. The realm will follow whoever lights first torch against endless night. Let it be you. He rested hand on orb. It pulsed faintly, revealing flicker of enormous shape in far north, ice dragon yet unfallen. Dawn's first blush touched horizon, orb darkened. He pocketed it, resolve crystallizing like hoarfrost. Trumpets blared as sun rose behind wall, bathing ice with golden sheen, momentarily serene. Then horns from watchtowers sounded 4 notes, enemy sighted. Across white plain, a line of shadows emerged, ranks 10 deep, stretching from forest to frozen river. Giants stomped with tree trunk clubs. Mammoths bound in frost chains hauled siege ramps of solid ice. Leading column, Frost Knights strode, capes billowing like silent blizzards. Above them hovered resurrected dragon, ribs glowing cobalt, holes in wings patched by black rime. Jon mounted Obscurion, heart steady. Robert climbed to platform, hammer raised. Archers knocked dragonglass arrows. Watch brothers grasped torches to fuses. Wind blew from north, cold absolute. The whites marched. Wildfire barrels ignited. Catapults hurled green flames that stuck to undead flesh. Burning with ghastly emerald light. Lenses focused sunlight, weak but amplified. Scoring holes through first ranks, turning spear points to steam. Giants roared, batting burning comrades aside. Mammoths crashed into trenches, oil lit, engulfing flanks in sheets of orange. Yet central column pressed. Dragons dove. Obscurion's black fire met white dragon's frost breath. Where flames clashed, superheated steam exploded. Snow turned to rain, then to shards of ice. Mavis attacked from side, talons ripping undead wing membrane. Saphira trailed, unleashing blue fire across giant heads. Air filled with shrieks, roar, and thunder of wings. On ground, Robert led sortie through gate, 20 mounted knights riding between ditches, to pivot into undead ranks, smashing bones with warhammers tipped in dragonglass. Benjen commanded rangers loosing arrows at Knights of Frost. One arrow struck lieutenant, cracks spidered across ice armor, figure shattered like glass. Suddenly, horn blast, 3 notes, from western flank. Second enemy column emerged through Pine Gap, Walkers flanking wargs with ice-armored hides. They slammed into ditch section where oil spent. Watch defenders faltered. Jon, mid-air, saw breach forming. He urged Obscurion into dive. At ground he swung from saddle, landing atop palisade stump. He chanted binding, palm to stone. Stone glowed. Trenches flared anew as residual oil ignited, sealing gap in curtain of flame. He nearly collapsed as energy drained, but line held. Above, White Dragon grappled Mavis, jaws clamping neck. Daeron screamed. Mavis cried. Jon vaulted astride Obscurion again, rose like thunderbolt. He guided Dragon toward struggling pair. Dawn rose drawn. He leapt onto White Dragon's back, plunging blade into ridge. Ice cracked. Blue fire spurted. Jon held firm, chanting ancient Valyrian. Dracarys, lux amphonos. Heat pulsed from blade, spreading fissures. Undead Dragon writhed. Mavis tore free, banking weakly. The crowned Night King below raised arms. Blizzard swelled, hail hammering Jon's armor. Obscurion faltered. Jon screamed defiance, drove blade deeper. With crack audible above wind, White Dragon split along spine. Halves tumbled, shattering on ice plain. Jon tumbled too, but Obscurion swooped, catching him. The Night King stared upward, expression unreadable. He lifted crystal spear. Rhaenys, seeing, wheeled Sapphira, flying between Jon and throne of ice missile. Spear launched, lighting followed its path. It pierced Sapphira's chest. Dragon's scream rent sky. Fire blue turned white, then extinguished. Rhaenys clung to reins, eyes wide. Sapphira spiraled, wings failing. They crashed beyond main trench, though inside second curtain. Dust rose. Jon shouted. Rage and grief fused inside, forging clarity. He ordered Obscurion down, but army pressed. He saw Robert fall back, armor battered, yet still swinging hammer. Giants breached outer ditch. Watchmen retreated to inner rampart. Jon made decision. He raised orb high, whispered name of darkness. Night King. Orb flared blinding silver, then black, swallowing light. A beam shot forth, striking crowned figure. For heartbeat, time stilled. Scene froze. Whites paused mid-step, flame flickered in suspension. Snow hung in air. In that stillness Jon saw into Night King's eyes. Vortex of starless winter screaming in solitude. And inside that nothingness he poured fire. Memory of Lyanna's laugh. Arya's wild grin. Bran's dreams of flight. Robb's loyalty. Ned's steadfast love. Dawn rose pulsed in tandem. Erupting light that chased into orb then outward. Time snapped back. Night King staggered. Cracks webbed across armor. Spear dissolved to water vapor. Yet not broken. Night King raised hand, forged another spear from ambient moisture. Jon's heart sank. The blast weakened enemy, but not enough. He spurred Obscurion over wall, landed near Rhaenys' crash site. Smoke and steam roiled. Sapphira lay on side, breath ragged, wing ruined, blood steaming. Rhaenys crawled free, arm bent wrong, yet eyes ablaze with purpose. She pressed pouch of ghost grass into Jon's hand. Balance. She rasped. Ice and fire. He knelt, crushed seeds between fingers, inhaled their faint glow. His mind sharpened. He turned to battlefield. Undead tide still incoming, albeit slower. Night King advanced, eyes locked on Jon. Behind him, ice giant lumbered, raising chunk of frozen earth. Jon gripped Dawn Rose. Obscurion thrummed behind, but fatigue weighed scales. Benjen appeared with dozen rangers, faces set. We go with you, he said. Jon knew what that meant. He climbed onto Obscurion again. Rangers mounted borrowed shaggy horses ringed with dragonglass-tipped lances. Together they charged, dragons overhead, men below. Night King hurled fresh spear. Benjen threw torch. Spear melted mid-flight. Obscurion opened jaws. Torrent of black fire hammered Night King. This time flames stuck, forging shell of molten glass around icy form. Jon shouted Valyrian syllables Baelor never taught but Quaithe had whispered in dream. Glass imprisoning Night King glowed red, then shattered outward. From shards burst geysers of steam. When mist cleared, figures stood disarmed, chest fissured. Jon dove from saddle, striking with dawn rose. Blade pierced through fissure. Night King's eyes widened a fraction. Frost exploded. Wave of cold raced outward, freezing blood mid-air. Jon's scarf stiffened, yet ghostgrass fire in veins held chill at bay. He drove blade deeper until hilt met rib. With final breath, Night King whispered language unknown. Jon replied in silence, memory of warmth. He twisted dagger. Cracks radiated. Ice crown fell. Night King crumbled to powder that blew away in residual wind. Across field, whites halted, blue fire sputtering out. Giants froze mid-roar, bodies slumping. A hush like dawn after storms settled. Then came a long collective exhale. Men, women, dragons, horses, all sensing weight lifted. Snow began to fall lightly, but flakes carried no foreboding, only hush of exhausted sky. Jon sank to knees, drained. Obscurion knelt beside, nudging him. Benjen lifted him underarm. Rangers cheered. Knights raised broken swords. Robert limped through smoke, laughing, tears freezing on beard. He clasped Jon by shoulders, then raised hammer skyward. Cries of victory echoed against wall, reverberating into endless night, now lifted. Weeks passed in flurry of funerals, rebuilding, and uncertain hope. Saphira survived, though wing would never heal fully. Rhaenys's arm set crooked but strong, a scar she wore with pride. The wall's breach lines melted gradually under dragon-heated trenches. Watchmen filled ditches, erecting new palisades of weirwood and obsidian topped. Wildlings assisted, now brothers indeed, if not oath. In King's Landing, Tywin received news of Night King's fall with stony face. He had mobilized, but paused upon Raven bearing details of dragon-led victory and Robert's survival. No coup now. Instead he drafted letter praising valor, renewing proposal of marriage to unify realm against future threats. Robert read in Council Hall of Castle Black, scoffed and tossed parchment onto brazier. "Let's hold council where winter truly sits," he declared, nodding to Jon. Great Council convened months later in Winterfell's new Great Hall, rebuilt larger to house lords and free folk chieftains alike. Stark banners hung beside Baratheon, Targaryen tree-colored with direwolf and stag overlay. Samwell presented treaties between Night's Watch and wildlings, ratified by Cordial and Mance. Davos unveiled taxation plan funding wall maintenance from royal coffers. Pettier Baelish orchestrated seating such that Tywin opposite Olenna Tyrell, ensuring barbed words dulled ambitions. Among resolutions, one dominated: succession. Robert announced he would retire to Storm's End after naming new heir, Aegon Targaryen, by blood and by deed. Gasps, debates, some cheers. Jon stood, addressing Hall. He spoke of balance, of war's cost, of threats beyond horizon yet. Not king for power but guardian of dawn. He proposed council rule, representing each great house, free folk, even Dorne in memory of Rhaegar's dream of shared destiny. Many protested, more pondered. Tywin's eyes narrowed calculating. Catelyn watched sons playing with Rickon near dragon hatchlings. Mavis's unexpected clutch warmed by hearth, and tears softened old ice. Council adjourned unresolved, but seeds planted. Outside, children laughed riding small, shaggy ponies. Above, Obscurion glided, casting vast shadow across courtyard, yet inspiring no fear, only wonder. Snow melted early that spring, revealing shoots of green rising through ash and frost both. Jon visited Lyanna's statue again. He placed crown forged of weirwood and dragon bone at her feet. "The song continues," he murmured, "not of ice or fire alone, but of living hearts." He felt warmth on cheek. Looking up, saw soft light filtering through crypt slit, touching her stone face with hint of smile. He emerged to courtyard where Arya practiced sword with Rhaenys, Bran instructed by Maester Luan on flight aerodynamics, Benjen teaching wildling children to shoot longbow. Ned watched from steps, pride and distance mingled. Robert argued with Davos about beer tax. Tywin approached carrying cup of sour Dornish wine, eyes resigned yet curious. Jon greeted each, feeling weight of crown lighten when shared among many. Dust-painted sky in shades of rose and charcoal. Obscurion perched on battlement, humming low. Jon climbed ladder, settling beside Dragon. They gazed at horizon where twilight met stars. He thought of Baelor, Quaithe, Night King, all shadows now memory. He laid a hand on warm scales, closed eyes. In void behind lids, he saw not death or prophecy, but flickering images. Torchlit faces of men united, children running across green fields, dragons soaring over cities, where bells rang not in fear, but in greeting. He opened eyes to gentle flurry. Snowflakes swirling but harmless, waltzing with embers from forge below. Balance, dynamic and fragile, yet for this breath it held. The song of ice and fire settled into soft refrain, waiting for next verse. Jon exhaled mist and hope both, ready to shepherd melody into whatever dawn awaited. The long hall still smelled of new sawn oak, resinous and sweet. Beneath the thin veneer of pitch, Ned had ordered daubed along the timbers. For winter tightness, fires danced in paired hearths, their warmth pulsing far down the aisles, between feasting boards, where dogs dozed and men talked in the hush that follows victory and the hangover of grief. Jon moved through it, almost unnoticed, leather soles whispering on straw-strewn rushes. Each quiet conversation stilled a heartbeat as he passed, deference born of awe, of rumor, and of uncertainty about what name to speak when the Dragon Prince walked by. He offered reassuring nods, touching a shoulder here, a mailed elbow there, a silent promise that the days of frostbright terror were, for now, caged behind the wall. At the massive doors he paused, drawing his cloak tighter as a gust pushed through iron-bound planks. The courtyard beyond was piled with slow-melting snow, trodden into gray slush between islands of clean white. Artisans were fastening new shutters to the solar tower. Bruises of frozen pitch stained their gloves. In the training yard, Arya sparred with Rhaenys' squire, a lean, copper-skinned boy from Sunspear, both using blunted steel. Sparks leapt whenever edge kissed edge. Sansa and Lady Barbary Dustin supervised a line of washerwomen airing tattered banners before re-stitching frayed seams. Rickon chased the runt of Mavis's hatchlings past the kennels, both child and dragonette yipping delightedly. Jon crossed the yard, purpose pacing his steps. Obscurion slept beside the warm outer wall, wings mantled, golden eyes half-lidded in dreamy vigilance. Dawnrose lay at Jon's hip, its rippled surface glinting whenever flame from a brazier touched it. The dagger had not left his side since the field of shattered ice. When he dreamed now, it throbbed like a second heart, warning or guiding. He could not yet decide. Near the arch that opened onto the East Bailey, Benjen Stark awaited, hood thrown back despite flurries. His cheeks were wind-burnt, but the flicker behind his eyes was a younger man's fire. "All's prepared," he said, falling into stride. "The Lord's summon in the Godswood. They grow restless." "They'll have answers," Jon promised, though inside he wondered what answers could mollify houses that had seen dragons and dead things in the same season. As they walked, he rehearsed the arguments, reason tempered with vision, yet each time he reached the part that named the future, the words tasted unfinished. They passed under the covered bridge to the Godswood. A skein of hoarfrost shimmered across every limb. The heart tree's red leaves had fallen in drifts that looked like dried blood on the snow. Beneath its pale bark face a circle of men and women stood. Lord Manderley in quilted sable, his bulk wrapped with a silverfish clasp. Gretchen Umber, beard plaited for a feast he would rather have spent brawling. Lady Mage Mormont green cloak pinned by bronze bear. Lord Garth Greenfield, gaunt after the siege, Maester Luwin with ink-stained fingers clasped around a roll of parchment. Catelyn Stark at Close to Ned stood Robert, cloak of stag antlers at his shoulders, belly pressed firm against a half-relaced leather jerkin, because good beer had returned to his diet the hour the Night King's crown blew away on the wind. The lords regarded Jon in a thoughtful hush. He shed his cloak, bowed before the heart tree, then turned to the assembly. Benjen took his place behind Ned. Rhaenys, Daeron, and Sir Barristan arrived moments after, their boots crunching leaves. Jon spoke. When we rode north, I asked you for trust. You gave it, and together we broke Winter's spear. Now I ask something harder. I ask that we choose a realm none of us has ever lived in, a realm of many voices under one purpose. Damn too. He let the sentiment breathe. Snowflakes coasted between branches in slow spirals. Wind stirred the red leaves. Flurries of crimson settled on shoulders and helms like rubies. Robert Baratheon intends to yield the throne, Jon continued. A stir, quick and shock. He would name me as heir, but I will not wear the crown alone. The wall still bleeds men. The south smolders from raids and retaliations. Dragons and direwolves share battlements, yet suspicion roams these yards like a ghost. I propose a council of 7, one for each kingdom, plus the north, plus the free folk, chosen by their own to sit with the king and decide the course of peace and war alike. No decree without council voice, no tax without their consent, no blades drawn in secret corners. Lord Manderley harumphed, ice fogging his beard. Speaks fair, the prince, but seats at a long table feed no hungry bellies. What of grain and coin when snows return? I will open the vaults of the dragon pit, Jon said. Gold unspent since Aerys's day, guarded by torches that no longer burn. A levy on royal treasure will restore fields, rebuild keeps, pay shipwrights to haul lumber to Eastwatch. And each realm will see its share, not a gift, but a contract. We mend the realm together, or watch it crack and drown. Then Greyjon rumbled approval, pounding the haft of his axe on the snow. But Mage Mormont scowled. Fine for great lords and dragons to speak of coin. What of Bear Isle daughters with no say in Southron palaces? Your council may grow fat, and forget the edges where people sleep cold. Jon met her gaze. Then you sit it. Bear Island's claws keep any table honest. Bow. A grin tugged at Maeg's mouth, though she folded arms. Davos stepped forward then, voice husky. Your Grace. He faltered over title, found courage. This council, will it welcome men who were once smuggler, bastard, or worse? It must, Jon answered. Our war was won by those who swam against names others gave them. He looked to Robert. A king's road is stone laid by many hands. Will you help set the first? Robert's smile cracked through beard. Lad. I'll sign the parchment, then sail for Storm's End and fish, until my sons. He caught himself, eyes flicking to Ned. Until the realm's sons call on me for stories. He lifted a wineskin, toasted the heart tree, and Ned led him aside to draft wording with Luwin. Yet not all hearts were settled. Catelyn watched Jon, worry twisting features. She edged forward. My lord Prince Jon, this peace, will it guard our children? Will dragons and wildlings camp beside Wintertown when next harvest fails? The words held no venom, only the tremor of a mother who had seen too much blood. Jon's voice softened. No council worth its candles would leave Wintertown to hunger. And wildlings are free folk now. North or south, they may pledge watch or plow, as each chooses. If one does wrong, they face northern justice, the same as any man. Catelyn searched his eyes, and at last nodded. Sir Barristan cleared his throat. Your Grace, your lords, there remains the matter of King's Landing. Tywin Lannister mobilizes armies even now. He will not cede power to a council forged in snows he did not tread. The lion paces, Ned agreed. But walls hold him, gold or none. We require an envoy swift and sharp to tame his fear. Bendoander. Benjen's eyes flicked to Jon. Send a dragon. No, Jon said. That would smell of threat, not friendship. I will send Davos seaworth. The hand of the king owes Westeros a debt. The Onion Knight is proof debts can be repaid with honor. He turned to Davos. Sail south. Tell Tywin what you saw beyond the wall. Offer him the empty throne. He may sit, but only with 7 by his side. He can hate dragons, but he cannot deny snow. Davos bowed. I'll need fresh onions. Robert barked laughter, clapped Davos' shoulder. Then Jon addressed the free folk, represented by Mance Raider, who stood lingering outside Ring. Mance, your people have no home. The gift is theirs, should they build and keep truce. Its soil is hard, but warmer than ice. Mance folded arms. We tilled frost too long to fear rock, but some among the watch still brand us thieves. If a free man crosses a border, whose law gut him? Mine, Jon said. No longer black cloaks nor Southron sheriffs. We'll post sentries of both watch and free folk, each judging the other. Let one fail, the other speaks. Mance inclined head. Agreement shimmered in cold air like early meltwater. The council accepted, parchment drafted in Ned's elegant hand, and signed with lines of flourished ink. Robert Stagg, Jones' 3-headed wolf dragon, Manderley's merman, Umber's roaring giant, Mormont's bear, Raider's 12-pointed star, Davos plain onions for the Stormlands, with space left for Lannister and Tyrell and Dorne. Ceremony concluded. Lords dispersed amid murmured reckonings. Jon lingered beneath Hearttree with Ned and Benjen. From branches, a raven croaked thrice, flapped off. Snow continued, light but steady, as though winter refused to surrender without one last whisper. Ned clasped Jon's arm. You spoke well, maybe too well. Crowns hate clever men. I don't intend to wear one. But you will, in all but name, Benjen said. 7 on council or 7 and 70, they'll look to you. He touched Jon's shoulder. Remember what kept the wall from falling? Men of every oath standing shoulder to shoulder. They parted. Ned to soothe Catelyn, Benjen to ready ravens. Jon returned to courtyard and climbed the spiraling stair of the first keep to the tower top, where Obscurion perched. From that height, Winterfell spread beneath like a toy fortress, new roofs patched with raw thatch, smoke curling from chimneys, dragons' footprints thawing the snow. Beyond palisade, camps of Stark, Baratheon, and wildling mingled, cook fires sending up columns of gray that braided in shifting breeze. Further south glittered the King's Road, a pale ribbon meandering toward worlds not yet rebuilt. Sunset set the clouds ablaze. The sky behind the wall far north flickered with aurora ghost green, echoes of ancient magic whose master lay now in powdered ruin. Jon sat cross-legged. Dawn rose lay across knees. He closed his eyes. Ghost grass clarity lulled his heartbeat into rhythm with dragon's rumble. He reached for the tether that bound them, then extended, slow, deliberate, toward deeper quiet. Images seeped like dye. A vast council hall of white marble, farmers arguing quotas with lords, dragons circling above Old Town's high tower, flame reflecting in citadel glass, a shipyard at Eastwatch launching black-hulled icebreakers, area teaching free folk girls water dancing, Rickon flying on the back of the smallest hatchling, laughter chasing clouds, Sansa presiding over harvest festival. He saw Robert, gray-bearded, hosting Dornish envoys over beer. He saw Tywin, older, leaning heavily on cane, grudgingly signing parchment with flaming wolf sigil. He saw himself, older too, silver-touched hair and lines at eyes, still bearing dagger but seldom unsheathing it. Yet shadows lingered forth. A black sail on summer sea bearing golden kraken, a priestess in red guiding swarm of candles across parchments forecasting doom, a boy with purple eyes and half-grown wings stepping onto Pentashi dock. The song of ice and fire carried minor keys still, unresolved chords. He opened eyes. Obscurion tilted head, gold gaze reflecting twilight. Jon exhaled mist. Not finished, he whispered. Dragon's breath throbbed assent. Sudden wing beat. Sapphira gliding on healing wings, Rhaenys astride. She banked, landed nimbly below. Jon descended ladder to meet her. She dismounted, arm still wrapped, but evening light gilded scar across her cheek. Council went well? She asked. Well as first snow fort against spring sun, he said. Holds shape, but warmth may test it. He gestured up the tower. Join me. The view reminds you of what we fight for. They climbed again, settled side by side on parapet. Rhaenys rested her good hand on stone. In Dorne boys roam deserts with no memory of Dance of Dragons. One day they'll read of Night King's fall and think legend. Let them, Jon said. If they remember lesson behind legend, stand together. He paused. How fares Saphira? She aches when snow thickens, but she flies. She dreams of hatchlings. Something wistful colored her tone. When dragons nest here, winter will look different. Jon studied her profile. Strong lines tempered by quiet pain. You could take her south to Dragonstone. Warmer cliffs. Rhaenys shook head. South has castles and ghosts I don't want. Here there's work. They fell into companionable silence. Below, torches lit walls. Bells rang for evening meal. Jon's stomach reminded him he had not eaten since dawn. But first he drew the orb. Its surface mirrored first stars. He whispered, What greater shadow must we yet face? Nothing stirred. No image leapt. But he felt orb's warmth, as though reply was not dread but promise, that beyond every shadow, new flame could kindle. He slipped it away, realizing tools of prophecy mattered less now than walls of human hearts. He gestured toward Great Hall. Come. Cook says venison. Robert will eat mine if we linger. Rhaenys smiled crookedly. Let him help her down ladders. They walked across yard where Arya now sat cross-legged with Mance's son, carving wooden effigies of direwolf and snowbear. Torches cast long shadows that danced atop ramparts, mingling dragon silhouettes with children's play. Somewhere inside, Manderly singers struck chord, chanting ballad of the long night broken. Jon paused to listen, a low, rising harmony. Voices layered, blending ages. He thought then of Baelor Brightflame, whose voice would never join such songs. He thought of the priest Quaithe, whose mask of stars might watch from across half a world. He thought of Rhaegar, his father, whose harp's silver strings perhaps still echoed in some distant ruined hall. The dead were many. Their echoes wove the present. But the living could sing louder. At the hall doors, Jon turned once more. Snow fluttered down, soft sparks against lamplight. He whispered a vow, not in Valyrian or the tongue of old gods, but plain words fit for hearth and field. I will keep the dawn. Then he stepped inside to warmth, to venison, to laughter, to the long labor of peace. His cloak shaking snow onto threshold, he could at last truly call home. The hall's fire burned low and steady, embers pulsing crimson beneath a grate of hammered iron. Jon sat at the king's table, but no one called him king, listening to the night settle against thick shutters. A rustle of parchment marked Maester Luwin's tallying of grain, soft scratch to balance the roar of distant wind. Rhaenys spoke in a near whisper with Sansa and Arya, explaining how dragonbone splines could brace a wounded wing without stealing flight. Bran, propped by woolen pillows, traced imaginary arcs through air as if steering some invisible craft. Above them, rafters creaked in slow cadence, reminders of wind carving the keep's outer stone. Davos entered, cloak powdered white, cheeks ruddy from snow. He nodded at Jon, handed over a travel-stained pouch, and brushed frost from his beard. Word from the south, he said quietly, producing a letter sealed in dark red wax stamped with lion and rose entwined. Jon broke the seal. Tywin Lannister's hand, rigid and precise, filled the page. We will parley at Harrenhal when the moon is new. I come with no banners drawn, under peace of the seven. Should dragons shadow those walls, the crown you shun will burn before your eyes. Below the lion's scrawl, in smaller elegant script, was Marjorie Tyrell's signature, the golden rose. The reach stands ready to sow seed when the snows melt. We will not thresh grain beneath a winter's throne. Jon read twice. The letter smelled faintly of crushed thyme. Highgarden's gardens, perhaps, or intended subtlety. He passed it to Ned beside him. Harrenhal, Ned murmured, lips tightening. Stone melted in dragonfire once already. Tywin hopes the myths will chill these halls. Jon turned to Davos. How does the realm wear new rumors? Like a borrowed cloak, Davos replied. Some say you tamed death and will tame old lions next. Others whisper that Tywin wields wildfire like Aerys once did. But gold still buys more ears than prophecy. Jon looked down the table. Children, smiths, maester, lord, smuggler, and knight. Disparate threads woven by necessity. We ride for Harrenhal within the fortnight, he declared, voice carrying just enough to reach every ear without rattling rafters. A small retinue, no dragons within 3 leagues. We'll meet Tywin at the waters between Lake and Dead Man's Dyke. Rhaenys, you and Daeron will circle high, but unseen. Now. Robert groaned from his seat by the second hearth. A parley with no cups? Harrenhal has cellars deep as Lannisport vaults. Strong wine blurs truth, Jon answered gently. And truth is what we barter now. Robert muttered but raised no further protest. Instead he lifted a mug of Wintertown ale, regarded its foamy crest, and downed half. 2 weeks later, Winterfell fell behind beneath pale sunrise. Jon rode Ghostwind, a gray stallion bred in Carhold, its breath pluming as white as the road ahead. Beside him, Ned guided Frost, and Davos brought up the right flank with a dozen mixed guards. Half Night's Watch volunteers clad in black cloaks, trimmed by fresh-dyed white stripes, half Northern Lancers with a new sigil, a direwolf stitched with a 3-headed dragon where heart would be. Benjen led a forward scout of free folk archers, while Maester Luwin rode just behind the baggage sled, quills and vellum secured in oilcloth satchels. Snow fell in thin veils, never thick enough to blind, only persistent, as if the land refused to forget winter altogether. They crossed the neck on raised causeway now guarded by wildling sentries who saluted Jon with awkward spears. At Moat Cailin, broken towers bristled with new scaffolding of green pine. Manderley engineers shouting measurements amid hammer beats. South of the Twins, Walder Frey hosted them with suspicious courtesy, his brood of sons lining buttressed corridors, while daughters and granddaughters offered trays of too sweet mead. Jon spent the night in a drafty guest room. Sleep shallow. He dreamed of the river lapping red at pillars as invisible hooves thundered overhead. On the river road beyond the Trident, spring's promise teased through crusted soil. Cold crocuses poked purple tongues and riderless birds haunted bare willows. Some debris of old battle lingered. Sun-bleached spearheads and a broken war horn half buried beneath reeds. Jon dismounted, lifted horn, found mold inside. He knelt at water's edge, washed grime away, and left it jabbing skyward atop a cairn of flat stones. Let them remember where dragons died and rose, he said to the watching reeds. They reached Harrenhal at dusk on the eve of new moon, its fused towers glossy black under failing light. The lake mirrored embers of sunset, ripples shattering reflection. Campfires flickered along the outer bailey where Tyrell banners mingled with Lannister crimson, and, conspicuously, sigils of Tarth, Mallister, Redwine, and even the silver python of House Piper. Beyond, 300 gold cloaks patrolled, faces hidden behind thin masks of burnished steel. Joan's party raised tents outside the massive western gate called the Widow's Mouth. Silvered torch sticks lined a wide corridor within, arrow slits eerily vacant. Tywin's envoys waited at Arch's throat, Kevan Lannister clad in half-plate, his son Lancel clutching a heavy scroll case, and Qyburn, former maester exiled from Citadel, robes cinched at unnatural waist. They greeted with formal bows, escorted Joan's retinue to the Godswood at Harrenhal's heart, where Tywin Lannister sat on a low stool of knotted oak, cloak lined with spotless white wolf pelts. An unsubtle message. Tywin's gaze lifted like a sword point. Jon felt the chill of cunning intellect colder than moats. Candles placed in iron baskets sharpened every acre of shadow across Tywin's stern features. The lion offered no seat, forcing Joan's company to remain standing. Lord Eddard, Tywin began with measured courtesy. When last we met, King's Landing burned. He turned to Jon. And you, born of scandal, now forging new scandal. Have you come north to show me dragonfire in dusk? Jon dipped head but did not smile. I came south to speak of realms, not threats. He gestured at empty stone bench, under a charred sentinel tree. May we sit as equals? Tywin's mouth quirked. With a curt nod he ceded ground. Servants brought cushions. Conversation began. Ned named terms. 7-seat council bound by charter. The Iron Throne a shared seat of adjudication only. Taxes funneled to rebuild watchposts and canals. In exchange, Lannisters retain titles. Tyrells secure grain trade. Dornish ghosts given justice for Elia and children by open inquiry. No vengeance, only truth. Tywin listened, unmoving save one brow's measured lift. At each clause he asked price, prompting Luwin to unroll parchment with careful phrasing. Kevan whispered to his brother. Qyburn scribbled in ravenant black ink. When Ned spoke of dragons banned from south of Gullet without council consent, Tywin's fingers tapped armrest. Your dragons killed a monster of ice, he said, voice too calm. But dragons kill castles just as easy. I ask iron guarantees. He opened a lacquer box. Inside lay 3 slim crossbow bolts tipped with dull gray metal. Scorpion quarrels forged of Uranian steel. If flame returns, walls will answer. Jon studied bolts. Fear makes poor mortar. If we build our world on weapon's edge, winter will come in hearts. And now, fear kept Westeros stable under Aegon's grandsons. Tywin returned. And I will not place my house at the mercy of prophetic princelings. Margaery Tyrell stepped from behind a willow's veil, gown shimmering pale green. Fear also starved villages when lords hoarded grain for sieges. We need gardens, Lord Tywin, not bigger walls. She met Jon's gaze, parted lips. The Reach will furnish seed and plows, but only if peace is more than parchment. Negotiations stretched long past the rising of new moon. Owls whispered overhead, and wind combed battered leaves. At last Tywin stood. I will sign charter, on 5 conditions. He extended gloved fingers counting. 1. My grandson, Tommen, will serve as page at Winterfell, fostering peace. 2. The Scorpion Guild remains licensed at Casterly Rock, 15 machines only. 3. Taxes on gold mines halved till tunnels drained of floodwater after unrest. 4. Your free folk will trade ores south through Lannisport at fair tariff. And 5. His gaze like flint on Jon. The dragon Obscurion does not cross Mander without explicit, crow-sealed writ. Ned's eyes cut to Jon. These concessions weigh heavy. Jon considered each demand. Tommen at Winterfell, child hostage disguised as page. Scorpions, perpetual reminder. Gold mines, Lannister's purse. Tariff, trade wedge. Dragon leash, symbolic harness. He breathed deep, ghost grass clarity tingling. Tommen may foster at Winterfell if Sansa fosters at Casterly Rock. Scorpions remain, but garrisons host joint crews. 1 Lannister, 1 Stark. Gold tax halved for 2 harvests, then full measure. Tariff set equal for all ore shipping. Obscurion may not cross the Mander, unless summoned by council vote. He paused. 5 answers for 5 asks. Tywin's nostrils flared. Approval at sharp spar. After moment, he bowed head. We have accord. Ink dried on parchment, signatures interlaced. The lion's paw, the rose, the direwolf dragon, the stag, the sun spear carried by Dornish envoy, who arrived near dawn, bleary but resolute. Paper smelled of cedar and latent blood. Later, while servants cleared casks, Jon wandered ruined courtyard. Dawn teased horizon, brushing melted towers bronze. He found Margaery feeding a nesting kestrel crumbs of oatcake atop broken gargoyle. Your prince gambles hearts, she said. Are we pieces or partners? I hope partners, he answered softly. Pieces break. She offered crumb. Bird took it shyly. Come spring, The Reach will send more than seed, carpenters and glasswrights. Dragons may warm new greenhouses in north. Jon imagined citrus blooming beneath Winterfell's glass gardens. We will welcome fruit amid snow. Margaery's eyes held warmth, but also calculation. A council is seeds. It needs water. Sun, pruning. She dipped a curtsy. Let us be gardeners, Prince Jon. They returned to Winterfell, as sap rose in birch and early thaw fed streams. Tywin's concessions brought caravans of mining engineers and smiths to trade ore for northern pine. Tommen, fair-haired and puzzled, rode through Winter Town on a shaggy Giron. Sansa met him with shy courtesy. A letter from Casterly Rock reported Sansa's arrival, escorted by Sir Jaime, whose smile, Petyr noted, cracked stone on old Maester's face. Council convened first full session the day Ravens announced Lannisport Charter ratification. Seats carved of mixed woods, weir wood, cedar, ash, birch, ebony, arranged in circle within great hall newly fitted with colored glass skylight. Light spilled prismatic on fur carpets. Jon took simple chair of pine, equal to all but one carved notch deeper to mark speaker host. He wore no crown, only cloak lined with fleece and clasp shaped like braided wolf-tail and dragon wing. Speakers rose. Wyman Manderley on river dredging, Olenna Tyrell on seed banks, Qyburn on plague wardens along Blackwater, met with caution. Mance Rayder on free folk settlement boundaries. Bran, having mastered new sling contraption, demonstrated map illusions on parchment, using tinted lantern slides. River floods, frost lines, trade loops. Lords blinked in wonder. Yet politics brewed. An envoy from Iron Islands, Victorian Greyjoy, sailed up White Knife under Black Kraken flag, demanding council representation. At hearing, he poured seawater on hearth in grim ritual, proclaiming the drowned god had not drowned Northmen, with storms only to kneel before Dragonlord. Lords barked, but Jon listened. Seat waits when Ironborn cease reaving, he said. Victorian scowled, left swearing that sea would have its due. That night, Obscurion growled at air. Jon sensed tension deeper. An echo from far east, pulse like dull drum. He climbed to battlement, orb in hand. Whispered, "Show the storm upon the foam." Dark scrying rippled. A fleet of black ships gliding through stepstones, sails painted with red kraken, carved prow of leviathan jaws. At bow stood a man crowned by curling horns of burnished driftwood, Euron, Victorion's brother, exiled and feared. His smile gleamed with shards of madness. Behind him, chained to mast, a pale warlock stroked a glowing glass lantern, humming cobalt light. Jon ended vision, heart thudding. He summoned Davos at once. "Sail Raven's Roost south," he ordered. "Warn Tyrell coast watchers. Iron Fleet moves." "Now." Davos nodded, already turning. Next day brought harder tidings. A Myrinese galley limped into White Harbor, crew half-mad. They carried sealed letter from Daenerys Stormborn, the Dragon Queen across narrow sea, begging aid against Triarch of Volantis, whose mercenary legions crushed freedmen uprisings. Meereen's dragons, 2 remaining, were slain by scorpion bolts lined with cold iron laced in sour black powder. The letter beseeched her nephew Aegon. Rumor had reached Slaver's Bay. To send counsel, or at least warn him that old forms of bondage evolved, wearing merchant crowns. Council erupted. Tyrells argued for avoiding eastern entanglements. Dorne, nursing grievance over Elia, insisted Targaryen bloodline owed response. Jon weighed prophecy. Dragons of world dwindling, yet realms still healing. He spent night in God's wood. Snow swirling under moon. Voices of Hearttree creaked. Bran arrived quietly, legs swinging limp but cheerful expression. He spoke of ravens he warged beyond seas. "Uncle, I saw silver ships anchored off Valyria's smoke. Men with carved masks hunted fireworms along Ruin's coast." Jon listened, fear nesting behind ribs. Fireworms. Smaller cousins to dragons, mined for alchemical bile. Balance once again leaned, precarious. At dawn, he summoned Rhaenys, Daeron, Benjen, Davos Dichter. "We must show council a path that guards realm yet answers kin's call," he said. Plan birthed. Dispatch small expedition across sea, no armies, only envoys and one dragon as symbol. Offer alliance of liberation with resources, not conquest. Rhaenys volunteered. Sapphira strong enough for long crossing if masts carried wind. Council debated until candles burned low. Tywin argued shipping lines at risk. Robert hammered table, proclaiming dragons should fight where dragons bred. In the end, a compromise. Rhaenys leads embassy, escorted by 3 Riverlander galleys. Davos coordinates supplies. Jon remains, guarding realm from Ironborn and any cold echoes still stirring beyond Frostline. Night before departure, Jon walked ramparts with Arya. She pointed at first star. "You ever wish for quiet?" she asked. "Like simple day hunting rabbits?" Jon smiled. "Sometimes. But quiet is won by many roaring days first." She pulled face. Sword needle at belt. "I like roaring days." He ruffled hair. On quays at White Harbor, crowds gathered. Sapphira unfurled mended wings, blue membrane. Scarred, but strong. Rhaenys donned scaled cuirass, clasped calibre de star sapphire. Davos clapped her forearm, offered salted cod for journey. Jon pressed dawn rose into her hand. "Return it," he said. She nodded, eyes bright. Galleys eased from harbor, sails catching brisk northern wind. Sapphira lifted, following like moonlit sentinel. Jon watched until blue speck merged with sea horizon. Weeks spilled into quiet industry. Highways paved, watchtowers lit. Tommen thrived under Maester Wolkin's tutelage. Sansa wrote letters praising Lannister Library. Margaery visited with wagons of rootstock. In glass gardens citrus blossoms unfurled unexpectedly, scent mingling with pine sap. Wool. Yet shadows did not sleep. Bran dreamed of Tower of Glass beyond Old Town where robed figures cut star metal into shards. Qyburn's ravens whispered of plague brewing in Flea Bottom. Rats coughing black blood. Tywin's informers reported Euron's fleet had vanished near Basilisk Isles. And high above the Dothraki Sea, Red Comet reappeared after years' absence, burning brighter, as if stoked. Jon noted each omen like stones in pocket. He strengthened river forts, raised watchfires along Cape, trained kerns in both spear thrusts and wildfire control. He wrote Rhaenys weekly. Ravens returned days later. First letter, safe at Braavos, refitting. Second, crossed Valyrian Strait. Storm forced landfall on Isle of Cedars. Third, Meereen brews revolt. Queen detained but spirited. Then, silence. Weeks rolled. Snow melted. Crocuses became blankets of lavender. Summer bees thrummed. But Rhaenys' ravens slept. One midnight, Orb awakened, invisible tremor stirring Jon from rest. He stumbled into courtyard, barefoot on cold slate. Orb showed smoldering bay, pyramids fractured, and in sky a new beast of fire. Vast, crimson-scaled, wingspan rivaling 3 dragons. Its eyes were twin pits. Its roar shook sand into glass. On spine rode Euron, crown of blackened bones, arms spread. Sapphira dove at beast, flame meeting flame. But Rhaenys' cry, faint through spell, cut off as crimson jaws clamped. Jon's breath shattered in frost. Orb dimmed to coal. As dawn bled, horns summoned council. Jon presented vision. Manderly paled. Tywin's jaw clenched. Bran. Small voice steady. Said Red Dragon. Hatched in Valyria's smog. Fed on fireworms. Hearts stoked by Warlock's glass. Qyburn whispered word. Pyroclast. Jon rose. Free folk, Northmen, Southron, we face new night, born of greed, not cold. His gaze met every seat. I ride east, council holds realm. Ned protested. Robert insisted on hammer at his side. Jon refused both. Ice answered winter. Now fire must answer fire. He donned black scale armor trimmed in silver. He called Obscurion from rookery. Dragon landed with thunderous gust, sensing urgency. Arya stepped forward, eyes wet. Bring her home, she said, handing small cloth, ghost grass seeds in stitched pouch. He squeezed sister's hand. I will. Bran placed palm on dragon's foreleg, eyes rolled white. After breath, he spoke in rasp of ravens. Beware the drowned dream. Salt in shadow binds beast to horn. Jon frowned. Bran's eyes cleared. He sagged, Maester Luwin catching. Jon mounted. Benjen clasped shin. The wall stands, he pledged. Go. Tommen waved timidly. Sansa looked skyward. Margaery's smile was bittersweet. With single command, Obscurion launched, carving spiral of melting snow. Then eastward, wings hammering dawn clouds. Below, Winterfell shrank to candle glow. Council banners fluttered atop rampart, fusing colors in rising sun. Direwolf, lion, rose, stag, sun. All fragile threads weaving hope. Jon breathed cold air deep. Far ahead, across seas and smoke, soared roar of crimson thunder. His heart matched its cadence, ice and fire in equal beat, steadying for storms to come. As continent unfurled beneath racing shadow, he whispered to the waking world. Dawn is not given, it is taken back.